Good thing I ate a snack.
And as a reminder, try to speak into the microphone. Yeah, that would help too, if you turn them off.
I thought mine was on.
What it says.
I think this one's backwards.
That fits you.
It's definitely on.
Ready? At this time, we will call the February 24th, 2022 Walton County Zoning Board Adjustment meeting to order. If you would, please stand as we have our invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Charlie, if you would, do the invocation.
Dear Lord, thank you for the opportunity to live in this great nation. Thank you for all the gifts you've bestowed upon us. Dear Lord, please guide us here tonight to do what's best for our county and our citizens. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Give us that ring.
Fall down the ramp.
You would. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the board members for being present tonight. We do have a full board. It's always a great honor to have the board members here to represent the districts, and the county commissioners appreciate it. We thank Karen for the hard work that she does for this board. We appreciate our attorney for being with us, and also staff and Mr. Hall. Are there any announcement needs to be made at this time?
The only announcement I'll provide to the board tonight is the Sunset Beach appeal. We did file paperwork with the court to seek a case management conference. As you may recall, that's the appeal that's been around for approximately 3 to 4 years, and the court hasn't ruled on it. We reached out to opposing counsel. They did not want to dismiss the appeal, so we said we'll file the paperwork to try to get the matter heard before the judge to get a final ruling. That was done at the beginning of February, so we're waiting for a case management conference to be scheduled. I'll update the board once that case management conference is
Is that the one we
set.
asked you to write the letter and you didn't write the letter?
That's the one we wrote. You asked me to write the letter. We reached out to the other side, and then we decided, because we couldn't reach an agreement, to just go back to court.
Still didn't write the letter. I
Well-
don't understand that. It's already in the court to hear it, and we just asked the court to make a determination. I don't
Yeah,
understand why
you
they
don't
did.
you don't normally just write letters to judges, especially if it's a
Judges don't usually take 5 years to make a decision.
understood, but you don't normally just write a letter. We filed a motion for case management to go in front of the judge and explain,
You
Judge,
should explain that to us tonight that we voted to write the letter,
what's that?
the procedure. If writing a letter was not a procedure, then you should explain that to us at that time.
Well, we were going to do what we needed to do, whether it was a letter or the format. We understood what we needed to do to get the matter moving, so that's what we did.
So now it's-
Well, we're trying to get it moving, yes.
we're waiting on the judge.
Yes.
Look it up. Anything else?
No, sir.
We ask each and every person that plan to speak before this board on any issue tonight, if you would, please stand, raise your right hand, and swear that testimony you give the truth. Mr. Dice.
Do you all swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, thank you.
First item on the agenda, what we're gonna do, the first item on the agenda is horsepower pavilion. We're gonna take care of that matter, then we're gonna let staff address the RV conditional use before we get started on that. We asked for a date. Mr. Hall, what they're asking for on this horsepower pavilion.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. The attorney for the appellant requested that we move, or requested that we continue till the March meeting at this point. She was unavailable for the meeting tonight, and we agreed to give her a month.
Need a motion?
Take a motion to postpone it to March 24th.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Stephen, if you would address the board in regards to the discussion about the conditional use on the RVs. The procedure that we discussed last, I think y'all been working on that. Address the board with hand out your handout that you want to give us.
Yes, sir. So staff, at the bequest of the board, did look at a number of items that were raised as concerns.
Stephen,
I'm sorry?
for those of you that was not here that playing golf last month, there's been discussion about the RVs, and we've had quite a bit of discussion to make sure they're not people living in them. So that's what we discussed, and Stephen is addressing that tonight.
So what you have in front of you is a small step, if you will, in that direction. Staff is proposing some minor changes to the application just to provide some additional requirements as far as what we expect from a site plan as it relates to an RV placement, as well as some additional questions in the application to ensure that the applicant understands clearly that this is a temporary seasonal use of an RV as a dwelling on these lands. In addition to those changes, I have proposed some potential sort of final order items that you, if it, pleases the board, that could go within the final order as sort of the checks that the board could make during the review of the applications, as well as some other questions just for consideration as, how some of these things may play out as we go forward. If these applications would come back before the board, if it would be some sort of temporary use permit after the board's approval, some of those items.
The items that is potential final order conditional use, that's what we addressed at the last meeting, and we made that part of the final order. Is that correct?
Yes, the board did add some conditions to the approved conditional use applications at the last meeting.
That was, is the septic tank water in this one?
I'm not sure if we put that in there based on some sort of a little bit of back and forth, as well as some understanding that these RVs, when they're done properly, are self-contained, and some of these would require a septic tank and water service. Some of them, they're not available in these things, and I did want to bring that to the board's attention that many of these lands are so far out that there may not be services that we would want to see. So we would, I guess, need to address a well and a septic.
But we did that last meeting. At the last meeting, we discussed that, and we made that part of our final order. Is that right, Mr. Dykes? We don't really care. The thing about it is the complaints that being made that the properties that's out supposedly without any facilities, electricity, water, septic, people are dumping it on the ground, running it on the ground, and that has been that's a problem, and code enforcement's run to it quite a bit, even though some of those that we approved since we started approving this, and that's why this is a heated subject. And we, last discussion, made it, to my understanding, they had to, I guess we can do it individually, but we'll continue doing it. But I think that if you're going to give us a list, I think that need to be on the list. They got to have a septic tank and water available.
And I think that's a valid item to include there. It wasn't something that I put in there outright. I thought that the board may want to discuss it more and add some additional items in there as well. That was not an all-inclusive sort of list.
Okay, no.
Yeah, and Chairman, the last, I'm looking at one of the last month's orders, there was language that included that the applicant was required to provide proof to the county they have installed a septic tank, or if applicable, or I'm sorry, if available, have it hooked up to the public sewer before moving the RV onto the property. There were other things about surveys, site plans. Also, there were time limits that the board, based on a case-by-case basis, I believe one individual had up to a year, another individual had 24 months for the conditional use. So those were things that were addressed and put into the final orders that were approved last month. So
I just want to try to stay consistent with that, because I think that is what we need to do, to make sure that they're not living out dumping raw sewage on the ground. And we can't have no way to police that unless we do it up front before they get their electric. And if they want their electric, then and if they don't want their electric, then they can just pull the RV in there and park it. Is that correct?
Well, potentially, right? That would be an illegal action, certainly, but yeah, I'm sure it happens. I do want to point out to the board that there are requirements within each individual zoning district that allows for this temporary and conditional use. One of those conditions is outright is that they have to treat their water and sewer in accordance with local and state laws. And while there's certainly indication that that's not what's happening in some situations, it is in the code already that they are supposed to be doing it. So it is an enforceable action now if they're not. I think that the board is correct in that making sure that it's made abundantly clear to the folks that are doing, this application is a good way to go about it. I'm not sure it's going to alleviate all the problems, but I think it's a good start.
Okay, that's all we
The
need.
health department enforces that specifically. Like if you call the health department, they'll go out and check.
Health
Make 'em-
department can't get around to doing inspections on the septic tank, but on taking care of all the RVs that's in the woods that needs to be inspected.
I think they only do it on a basis of if you call and complain.
Okay, we gotta move along. Your time, you have allowed, you have used up your time allotted to you.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve, appreciate it. First item on the agenda that will be heard tonight is a Berry conditional use for RVs. Who's here to represent the Berry? Third, it's gonna be the third item, but is the Berry's here?
Actually, no, this is going to be a request to continue to the March 24th, 2022
Okay.
meeting.
Motion to continue?
Motion to continue to the March 24th meeting.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All right, let's move on. How about the Mendez conditional? You wanna continue it?
There is one more request that staff received, so it's not identified in here, but item number 10, the Bristol Development Multifamily Conditional Use. There is a request to continue to the March 24th meeting as well.
March 24th, motion to continue the Bristol Development Multiple Family Conditional Use.
Motion to continue to March 24th.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we ready to start the Mendez conditional use?
I would need to announce that I was one of the people that was notified within the 300 feet, 'cause I do own property within that 300 feet. But that I was planning on just relying on the evidence that was presented here tonight. I have no financial gain in either way from either.
If
any
you
decision.
think that he's gonna vote against you, you have a right to tell him that you don't want him up here. If you think he's a fair person, then you have the right for him to sit here and listen to your argument.
Okay, my name is Betty Bacon. I work on the planning department, and I'm going to be translating for Mrs.
Well, we needed you
Trista.
last
So I'm
month.
gonna let her, sorry?
We needed you last month.
Well, I didn't know that.
One second, ma'am. Were you sworn in earlier? Will you raise your right hand? Do you swear?
No, I wasn't sure if I need to
Okay,
swear.
yeah, I'm going to need to swear you in that you are going to properly interpret what, I'm sorry, what's her name?
She's Trista Mendez,
Okay.
and I'm not an interpreter. I'm gonna try to do my best.
Okay.
I know Spanish and.
Oh, that's fine.
So-
Well, do you swear or affirm that you will try to truly and accurately interpret what Ms. Mendez says tonight?
I swear.
Okay, thank you. And, Mr. Chairman, based on Mr. McKinley's disclosure, because he's not receiving any special gain, he would be entitled to participate in this matter.
Doesn't she have the right to,
Oh, she can object, but I'm saying as a baseline, just because he has property within 300 feet does not automatically disclude him from participating in these matters. So, but it would if he was going to receive any type of special gain or, impact. So,
we appreciate that, but we're gonna give her the opportunity to voice her concerns.
El señor que se llama Charles McLean, él fue uno ¿crees que él va a estar, no va a estar a favor de tu aplicación? Tú puedes decir que no quieres que él participe. It's okay with you participating.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Tell us what you're asking for.
¿Qué es lo que tú, para qué estás aplicando? First of all, good evening. I'm applying to put an RV on my property to live there with my family as a temporary use.
What's her definition of temporary use?
¿Cuánto tiempo tú dices que vas a vivir ahí temporalmente? ¿Cuánto tiempo para ti? Until she can save enough money to put a mobile home or a house on it.
Does she have a septic tank on it or water tap?
¿Tienes un pozo séptico o agua potable? Not yet.
How long does she think it'll take her okay, this is the deal. After last month, you can't live in an RV permanently. The state will not allow it. We discussed it. There's some concerns once we approve these, people living in them. And that being said, we're limited to 1 year. We will give most likely a temporary use for 1 year. And if she has not saved enough money to get a mobile home at that point in time, and then she can come back before the board and ask for an extension, but she's gonna have a septic tank water put in.
Él dice que no está permitido que las personas vivan en un RV. Quizás te puede dar un permiso por 1 año, para ver si tienes suficiente tiempo para reunir el dinero para comprar tu casa. En ese año no lo has reunido, quizás podrías volver aquí para pedir una extensión, pero que seguramente vas a tener que poner un pozo séptico y agua potable.
She good with that?
She's okay with that.
Stephen, do you have a copy that you can give her that you provided the board that some of the language that's also be in the final order? Do you have a copy of that she could disclose to her?
That's a copy of what, sorry?
I do not have a copy with me, but I'm happy to make it.
Ma'am, come up here and
Very good, thank you.
read that to her, make sure she understands that, because that's going to be part of the conditional use. Yes.
Ok, él quiere saber, él te va a poner esto como una condición para tu aprobación y quiere estar seguro de que tú entiendes lo que te está diciendo o de lo que va a estar allí. Dice que el vehículo tiene que estar fuera de la línea de retiro de la propiedad. El condado tiene algunas medidas para eso. Entonces tienes que chequear con nosotros cuántas millas son y tienes que estar fuera de de las líneas de retroceso de la propiedad. Vas a tener que obtener una vegetación alrededor de la propiedad como para separar tu propiedad de los vecinos. Y ellos te van a dar exactamente cuánto tiene que ser. Las plantas que vas a poner no son solamente las que tú quieras, sino son unas plantas que tienen que estar aprobadas. Generalmente son como las que son nativas de la zona. So it says here that the conditional use approval it needs to review every 24 months. Is that correct?
That's on, this is on the individual basis. What we're gonna do, we're probably gonna make it on a 12-month basis, and then she will have to come back for a review, or do you have that worked out yet? Will she come back for the board, or is that something you,
That was something that staff was hoping the board would kind of discuss to determine if that's the appropriate. Mr. Hall just indicated that if the board approves it, then the board would have to re-approve it if that's, yes.
yes, she would have to come back for the board and give us a good reason why to extend it.
Okay. But it says 24 months here. It will be 12 months then.
It's
Yeah,
gonna be
that's a
12.
draft document,
Okay,
so it's
okay.
not
I just wanted to
been
make sure.
formalized yet.
Entonces dice que a las 12 meses, si vas a necesitar una extensión, vas a tener que regresar aquí para pedir una extensión de tu permiso y darles a ellos una razón específica de por qué necesitas extenderlo. Y que vas a necesitar tener una copia de un reporte de inspección del RV que tengas.
Thank You can keep that, just give that to her. Do you agree with all that?
¿Estás de acuerdo con todo?
Yeah? Okay. Any questions?
I was gonna suggest, after looking at the photos, this site is very heavily wooded. So the additional placement of landscaping materials seems unnecessary if the RV is placed far enough back on the site that the existing vegetation would screen the RV.
Is this natural vegetation preserved on site, has the same buffering effect, and can be utilized in lieu of planting? On the,
There's a lot of issues out there, and there's been a lot of concerns of stopping the conditional use because of the county commissioners getting a lot of heat from the public. We're trying to take and save the opportunity to have a temporary use for that RV. And this is language that we discussed that the county commissioners have been receiving a lot of concerns is agreeable, that they just don't want to shut it down.
Right.
When you have code enforcement and you have people, you need to
Tying up a
ride
lot
out,
of
you need to
resources.
ride out there and look at it.
Yeah.
And then we're trying to hide it, trying to make sure it looks appealing and not pulling up older RVs and, you know,
Yeah.
dumping stuff on the ground.
That's why the 12-month time frame is more universally accepted.
Right.
Okay.
And it'd be on an individual basis. Okay, you may have a seat. We'll have a seat up front. Right there, yes. Stephen?
Yes, thank you. Upon reviewing the application for conditional use 21-000012, staff has determined that it satisfies the minimum requirements for conditional use under section 2.02.04D of the Land Development Code.
Staff report? Do you have one?
Yes, please enter the staff report into the record as well as our electronic files as well, please.
Up front, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's it.
Anyone here in opposition for this RV support or RV request? Anyone, or come up, state your name for the record.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, my name is James Griffith. I own the property adjacent to this that they're purchased.
Okay,
I have no problem with them putting an RV on it temporarily with a septic tank water. What about power? I don't want to listen to a generator all night long.
that is, they have to have the power, that's part of
Okay,
for them to get the power, they have to have the water and the septic.
okay. I just wanted to understand that they were getting all the utilities that I was required for putting a home on property.
Just hang on a minute. We'll make that part of it.
Well, the reason why they're here is they can't get a temporary pole permit until they get the conditional use,
So
so.
he has a real good point. They could take a generator and they could take and crank it up while they want to cook something on it, and then they could take and turn it off, or they could let it run all night. So we need to make the utilities, which is gonna be the sewer, the water, and the electric. And if you have ever sat around listening to a generator, and if you don't think it won't happen, I guarantee you, and right out there in Oakwood Hills, and somebody's
Yes,
running a
sir.
generator right now. Especially if it's gonna cost them $10,000-$15,000 to run electricity to a lot that is off record, there's no electricity to. So we make that part of it. Anything else you want to add, or do you
That's
think we covered everything pretty well?
Yes, sir. Pleased with everything that's going on. Like I said, I was just curious about the utilities. I have no problem with what they live in. I mean, I'm glad you set it up to where it's a temporary deal, because the community's finally starting to get cleaned up. And the motor home or travel trailer that was across the street, it's gone. They're cleaning up everything on my road, the road that I live on. And this property is on that she's purchased. And I hate to see that come back into the neighborhood again, because they are cleaning it up,
It's
finally.
unfortunate that living at places to live is getting very expensive, and we're, the county and the county commissioners being very sympathetic with the costs, and this is a way we're trying to ease people in and being able to help themselves, and we
Oh, yes.
appreciate you coming down here tonight and being part of the discussion. And we appreciate your advice, because I would assume that electricity would have been, but if you hadn't pointed out, so we'll make it part of it, and we
Awesome.
thank you for coming.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Are there anyone else? Anyone in favor, anyone in opposition like to speak to this? I think you're in pretty good shape. Do you want to have anything else to say for the lady? Come up, come up.
¿Quieres que le diga lo que tú me dijiste antes? She said that her intentions are to put a mobile home, but she was telling me just a little earlier that her husband's father just passed away in Mexico of COVID, and he has been a month over there. He hasn't come back yet, and she seems to be unsure if the 12 months is going to be enough time.
We're gonna make it pretty easy for her to just come back down here and ask and get, or tell us why. Why it's, if 12 months comes along and she needs extra time, we would like for her to come back and say, this is the reason why. We have to put a time in there. I mean, I understand 12 months. We're gonna leave it 12 months, and she can come back down and talk to us.
Ellos te lo van a poner muy fácil para que tú regreses si necesitas regresar, que van a poner 12 meses y que si necesitas puedes venir para acá otra vez y pedir una extensión.
Hang on a second, go ahead.
I just got one question. Does she have the money to put the septic and the water and septic and the power now?
Ellos preguntan si tienes el dinero para poner el pozo séptico, la electricidad y el agua potable ahorita. Not right now because her husband have to spend a lot of money on his trip.
She understands that she can't move on it until she satisfies those things, so until she gets the sewer and stuff.
Pero tú entiendes que no vas a poder moverlo hasta que pongas el pozo séptico y el agua. Que no te puedes mudar, si ellos te dan permiso, no te puedes mudar enseguida hasta que tengas todos esos servicios. Yes, I understand that.
Okay, thank you very much. Close the public discussion.
Make a motion to close the public discussion.
Second,
Second,
need a motion.
make a motion, we approve the Menendez, conditional use RV, for one period of 1 year with all the conditions we've all spoke of tonight. And
We're gonna add the septic, the water, and the electricity to be provided for the RV. Is that correct?
Along with these on the paper or
We're
not?
gonna take the property owners shall require renewal, we're gonna change that to 12 months. Okay, have a motion, second.
And Mr. Chairman, I can use what was signed last month as a template. I can add that language that the county gave you as well.
Yes.
Attach that to the order. There was some additional language that, you know, should there be any code violations on the property, that would be that would cause a revocation of the conditional use order. So things like that.
Yes,
So I'll add those.
let's do a motion. I got a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? If you would take and she received her requests, we approved it, okay? Thank you, appreciate you coming. Write everything down on the list, bring it to us so we know what we're. that
Yeah,
we
I
don't
can do
miss-
that.
we don't
Yeah,
miss
I'll
nothing.
bring what you did, as I said, what was incorporated into
Right.
two of the conditional use orders you approved last month. I'll incorporate the counties, and we can work off that. And there's this board has the opportunity on a case-by-case basis to add things, modify or whatnot, but I'll bring that back, yes.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, who was the second for the, we had Mr. Rushing for the first and Mr. Henderson?
Yes,
Okay, we're just making sure we got the record correct, thank you.
we're good? All right, moving right along. Number 5. O'Connor's conditional use. Who's here on behalf of Mr. O'Connor's? State your name for the record.
Gary Benjamin?
Gary Benjamin,
Benjamin. Yeah.
how do you fit into the O'Connors?
Oh, I'm a close friend and help raise the daughter and everything.
Okay, what, you here representing the property owners, right? Are they here?
No, sir. They're listening though.
Okay, where are they at?
In Texas?
Oh, is this the ones that they came last month and there was not notice and her husband didn't want to ride back with her to Texas? Did they make it? Did he make it safely?
Is that how that went? That's how that went. Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. very
Sir,
good.
if you would, we'll need you, as best you can, maybe
And-
put them on speaker and maybe get them close to that mic, so.
We're not going to take look, I think everyone here understands you wasn't here.
I was on the call.
You was on the call? Okay.
I had COVID, so I enjoyed watching the meeting.
David wasn't here.
Okay. Do you know enough about it, take and brief everyone, or do you just here just to see that we finished what we did? I'll tell you what, just step aside a minute. Stephen, tell us what's going on.
So the O'Connors were not able to make it back to Texas. They were able to contact this gentleman. They have a signed agent affidavit or he has a signed agent affidavit from the O'Connors, providing him the ability to represent them on this day. Nothing has changed in the application. They're still seeking conditional use of an RV for temporary seasonal dwelling on the subject property.
The difference in their RV than others' RV is they purchased this property with RV on it.
I don't recall if the RV was on it, but it was certainly set up for an RV. Maybe they can speak to that. There was already a carport and hookups and things like that. From my understanding, I believe that's the situation.
Okay? All right? Do y'all, you good with it? All right, Mr. What's your name?
Mr. O'Connor.
Gary Benjamin,
Gary.
he said the trailer RV was on there when he bought the property.
The RV was set up and they bought the property.
Yes, sir.
And they gonna come down and visit how often, how many times a year?
You know how to put it on speaker?
It is on speaker.
Tell them,
But there you go. Oh, once a month. There you go. I had it on speaker.
they're gonna come down and visit once a month and go back.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is he gonna be comfortable for 1 year? I mean, is he expecting to put a mobile home there? Is he expecting to build a house? How often does he think, how many years does he want that RV there?
How many years you want the RV there? You're not
We plan on putting a mobile home in there or a prefab house, but you know, we gotta save up money for that. That'd probably take a couple years.
Does he think 2 years is sufficient?
2 years good for you?
Without lying, I would say 3 years would be sufficient. That way I know I got cushion.
My position on this, he bought the property with RV on it, thinking that it was set up and the county will allow it. And we're coming and putting these rules on these RVs now. And to me, there should be a little sympathy to this individual. I don't know, 3 years. I think we could probably do 2 years, and then he could come back and ask if he doesn't have the money in 2 years, then he come back and ask. But that's my position on it. I think we need to show a little leniency to those that's already set up. What kind of condition is the RV in?
The RV is in excellent condition.
Is it landscape?
Not yet. We just finished pruning trees and stuff our last visit down, making everything look beautiful.
Any questions?
I have a question.
What is the present status of water, sewer, and electricity?
We have a generator right now. We don't use the bathroom. We come down there to sleep at night, and we shower at our friend's house, Mr. Benjamin's daughter. We stay at their house and shower and go to the pier and fish and take our boat out and fish. We don't. It's just a place to rest our head at night, so we don't inconvenience them. It's nothing where we go to the bathroom and shower and stuff like that. That's not what we do there right now. You know what I mean? Not till we get electric, not till we get sewer, and then we'll do that kind of stuff.
Well, I'm a little, I thought it was set up with water and sewer, so there again, I assume, and that my assumption is wrong, so somebody just pulled it in there and sold the lot and y'all bought it. Is that what your testimony is?
It was on the lot, leveled, covered with a metal lean-to or whatever you want to call it, but there's no water, no septic. That is correct.
Well, you do understand that we're going to require you to put a septic and water and electricity. You understand that?
Absolutely. That's our goal.
Any further questions?
But the way I understand it, he's gonna pull in there and crank a generator for right now, for temporary.
How did we approve this tonight?
Well, I
Because
just
our
want to make
approval-
sure he understands
I
that,
just-
because
our
that's
appro-
what he just got through saying.
Our approval's going to be
Okay.
the items that we listed before. We're not going to exception, treat one way and one the other. The only exception we're going to make, and I'm real hesitant without sewer and water being there, but his testimony is that he purchased it this way. So I think we need to give him a little bit of leeway here. But 2 years, I think he should be able to do something.
I'm not understanding why the previous applicant wasn't given 2 years and this applicant is being given 2 years. I think if we're gonna limit the time, it should be pretty consistently applied. And then they can come back and request an extension.
If I'm from Texas and I come down, this is my position. If I'm from Texas and I come down to Florida and a realtor tells me that here's a lot with RV on it, I can sell it to you, you can come down here and there's no problems, there's no regulations, there's nothing. And then the county comes along and says to us, okay, we need to tighten up on the RVs, that is not nice RVs, that they're dumping sewage and they got code enforcement out there, so we're trying to set guidelines here. To me, I don't think he should be treated the same because he purchased it that way. That's my position. It's up to this board, whatever y'all want to do.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the basis for this conditional use provision that's in the code is that we are consistent that this is a transitional use, a temporary use. The staff and Mr. Carpenter has requested that we limit all of the conditional uses that are approved to 1 year with the option of renewing, but that in order to keep consistent in relation to the temporary use nature, that we stay with 1 year.
Last month, we approved a 24-month. And that's why, I wasn't too opposed because we gave that guy a little leeway.
Mr. Chairman, we're working towards consistency on, with all the new instructions from the board.
And as you may recall, Mr. Chairman, that individual did have utilities already on the property. So, and he had represented to this board under oath that he had either intended to build, his wife had passed away recently, so he was going to build, but he already had utilities on the property, and this was basically, he wanted to come into compliance with the code. So I think it was similar to what you thought this one was like, but in that case, he did have the water and sewer, he already had electric.
We're good.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
If, like with a house that's existing on a property or anything that's existing on a property, if you buy it on there and it's already there and it's essentially grandfathered in, would that not still apply? Would it not grandfather in because it was, if he bought it on there and had been there since?
Not unless the
before
conditional use had already been approved and it was a recorded conditional use. And
like my thought would be is that when it was put on there, it may not have needed a conditional use. Would that not be true or would it be true?
Well, that, vesting or grandfathering always goes back to a specific time frame. It's always the burden of the applicant to prove that they are entitled to be a vested or grandfathered use.
Okay.
It's not the county's assumption under the Land Development Code is that it's not a grandfathered or vested use unless evidence is provided.
Okay.
But any RV that was set up prior to the time that the county implemented these, or we last month implemented these changes, would be considered grandfathered.
No, Mr. Chairman, no. The issue on grandfathering or the issue on these changes is that the board has always been authorized to provide reasonable conditions on the grant of the conditional use of the temporary RV use. So we're just taking the board's instructions and clarifying and trying to be more consistent on the general conditions that we want to address the temporary use.
But if there's RV was placed 5 years ago, are they going to have to come and get a conditional use?
Mr. Chairman,
To grandfather it in?
I really want to be careful with using the term grandfather or vested rights in relation to these temporary uses. You simply don't get the ability unless you can, frankly, under the code, prove that it was here prior to the adoption of the code
Right. What?
in 96.
No, they were allowed to put it on there up to a few years ago when they changed in the code.
And Mr. Chairman, we've been addressing this in great detail with the code and compliance officers. In fact, just did a training earlier this week on these particular issues relating to RVs located in illegally without a conditional use approval. And the county's position at this point is that the vested status has to be established by the owner, and it has to go back to the 1987 date of the adoption of the code.
I disagree with it, but we're gonna move along.
I ask a question?
We're working hard on it, Mr.
Go
Chairman.
ahead.
This dispute here is over what we do in a year or 2 years?
That's what
Is there
that's what we're trying to understand.
Is there something that has to be done in a year to make everybody happy to?
We fixing to tell you what will make us happy. Yes, sir.
Okay, that's, okay, go for it.
We heard your side of it. The county will give them another opportunity. Any other questions here for this gentleman? Have a seat up front. Stephen, what else do we need to know?
If I could have the staff report and any electronic files entered in the record, please.
So entered.
Thank you. What staff has determined based on the application submitted, that conditional use 21-000010 does satisfy the temporary conditional use requirements under section 2.02.04D of the Land Development Code. However, that being said, it occurred to me during these conversations that the applicant appears to intend to leave that RV on site continuously, which would not meet those code requirements in staff's opinion. It would have to be removed at some point during a given time, typically a calendar year, to meet that temporary or seasonal understanding that staff has held historically. So if the owner's intent is to simply leave it there for the next 2 years without moving it or removing it from the property, I'm not sure that it does satisfy that section of the code.
Weren't we making them move the RV so that it could be emptied? With
Yes.
The holding tank and whatnot, but if they're gonna install the water and sewer, we're asking them to put water, sewer, and power on site, then that would eliminate the need to take it off site, no?
But
The reason you have to move it is because the state of Florida says, in my understanding, help me out here, Department of Health state that you have to take and move the RV off. It can't be a permanent structure to live in. Is that not the Florida statute?
I hold a limited understanding of what the Department of Health requires for RVs out of an RV park. Now, there are certainly standards that they have permitting requirements for RV parks and RVs within them. I'm not sure how this would come into play with the Department of Health other than a septic tank permit. That's kind of outside of my scope of understanding there. I'm not
Doesn't
sure.
really matter because we're limiting the time that they can use this conditional use, either a year or 2 years. And if the board votes for 1 year, then it's 1 year. They can leave it there or not, but that's what we're limiting it to.
Thought what he was just saying though, within that year it has been moved off and then back on.
That's how it's been done historically, and that's how staff has interpreted the code. So staff was of the understanding that this RV would be moved off and on when they visited their site. But apparently it's based on the conversation. It sounds like it's there permanently. They drive here from Texas and then leave and the RV stays. So that's where I'm questioning the compliance with this section of the code.
You good? Thank you, Stephen. Come back up, sir. You have anything else you want to add?
No, sir. You want it moved? I can do that tomorrow?
No. What the board's gonna do, most likely, I can't tell you until it votes, but most likely the board's gonna approve a conditional use with stipulations in it. The stipulation is they're gonna give, most likely, it's either a year or 2 years. If it's a year and they don't meet that 1 year, then they can come back to the board and they can ask for an extension, as long as they got good reason to do so. Or it may be 24 months, but that's up to this board. But we fixing to let you know what we're fixing to do. Okay, no?
Yes, sir.
Have a seat, sir. Motion to close the public discussion. Anyone else here that would like to speak in regards to this, either for it or against it? Moving right along. Moving to public discussion.
Make a motion, we move to close the public discussion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion?
Motion to approve the conditional use for 12 months, stipulating water, sewer, and electricity.
And the other
Oh,
items
and-
that listed by the attorney that is going to be included in the final order,
Yes, sir.
that is consistent with the others.
Yes, sir.
Have a motion and a second.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? You got your conditional use for 12 months. 12 months, if he needs an extension, he has to come back before this board and ask for it, okay? Thank you, we appreciate you coming. Thank you for filling in for him. Item number 6, Lentz Group, Inc., variance. Doggone, we got a variance. Who's here on behalf of this variance? Come up and state your name for the record. You've been here before, right?
I have. Good afternoon, good evening. Stephanie Manning, SM Consulting and Expediting on behalf of Links Group. We are here about 67 Cypress Grove Lane. If you guys will take a look at the survey, so it'll make sense as we go. The north side had a 7.5-foot side setbacks per the LDC. Go ahead and point it out, as Jeff mentioned the last meeting, we are 80 square feet from automatically having 5-foot side setbacks. If this property would have been 80 square feet less, we would have qualified for 5-foot side setbacks and not been here with this issue. Going back to July of last year, Dave, the owner and contractor, had poured the slab, got his foundation survey ordered late June, early July. Supplies was out, employees are out, surveys are 2 months behind, you guys know how it goes. They finally got the survey back. At that point, that's when they realized the house was in the northern side setback. It's in the northwest corner of the setbacks by 2.39 feet. So we're less than 2.5 feet on one corner. If you notice that fence that's on the northern parcel, the flag for the property line was on the east end of that fence. When he got out there pouring that slab, they thought the fence was entirely on the property line, so they ran that foundation 7.5 feet based on that fence. Come to find out, that fence shifted further north, which is why the house sits crooked, adjacent or parallel with that fence. So I was out with COVID during the beginning of August. Dave calls and he's like, "Hey, Steph, I've got this survey, I'm sending it over." He calls, sends it, me and my little COVID medicine, I pull it up. I'm like, "Dave, what's going on? You're in the setbacks." And he's like, "Yeah, but it's 5 foot for one, because we're less than 10,000. I've done the math. He's used to working in Seagrove, does it, no problem. Problem is, quick field math didn't work in his favor. We were 80 square foot more than what would have been allowed for a standard 5-foot reduced setback.
I'm only coming up with 43 feet over.
See, I was being conservative because the field versus the deed. But yes, it's that minute, those few feet.
One stipulation, that only applies to lots in a platted subdivision of record prior to 1976.
I believe that's any lot of record, 1976. Is it platted? It's any lot, isn't it?
I think Mr. Burgess is correct. Any lot that would qualify for a 5-foot side setback based on non-conforming status with the 1975 subdivisions would have had to been created prior to May of 1975 and be less than 10,000 square feet at that time and still remain in its present condition.
Would it have to be, or just establish that lot line?
I think they're platted lots. Platted or not, it has to exist in 1975. It has to exist in the exact same shape.
Do we know when this lot was?
I traced the deed, I believe, back to 77 and then stopped once we realized we were over. I didn't continue to trace that. Simple call to the property appraiser would have answered that question for sure, but because we were over the 10,000, I did not continue having them pull the old archives. But going back to the timeline, Dave realized he was in a pickle. He got another survey, just to clarify. It was my understanding he had them go back out and check it because they still didn't understand how they were off on the west corner because they followed the fence perfectly. That's when they discovered the fence was not on the property line.
Who owns the fence?
The neighbor to the north.
They're not the same people?
No, sir. From what I understand, they just purchased it within the last year or so. I believe Mr. Shipman can tell you more about that part. We made it to the variance. It did take longer than normal. We missed was me being out in August, come in September, October, got everything together. November, the dates had changed. That was on me. I didn't get the dates in time because of the holidays. So we got delayed, pushed back till December. When we come to see you guys in December, Mr. Shipman, we ended up continuing it. He couldn't make it to January for trial, so we're here tonight in February mutually. During this time frame, we thought we had the issue solved. The owners had reached out to the owners of the north, the ones that, if anybody were to be impacted, it would be them. Tried to make nice. They discussed it, a lot line shift, not a split, but a shift, to move the line north 2.39 feet, which would have corrected the violation. He would have been exactly 7.5 feet on that corner. I had a pre-app with Rosanna. County approved it, not the lot split or shift, but the actual pre-app said it wouldn't be a problem. We go to move forward. Dave contacted the owner to the north, offered him $10,000. They countered with $50,000, which went back to $40,000, and it finally went to $150,000. And at that point, it didn't make sense to pay what would equate to $24 million for that 2 foot of property.
Did we vote on this?
No, sir, it wasn't heard last.
Is this, William,
You weren't there.
I wasn't there?
We just continued it.
This is not the one that we voted on.
No, sir.
This came before us in December. I think you were gone.
Just want to point out, if you look at the survey, there is a road, Myrtle Drive, on the west side. On the south side, there is Cypress Grove. It's a very sharp curve. It is a narrow road. He intentionally shifted this house to the north to stay out of the view at the intersection. If anybody were to ever open that back up, he intentionally stayed back just so that it didn't interfere with anything on that curve. He has plenty of room. He could have almost built this same house again on the same lot. It's not that we were trying to fit 10 pounds into a 5-pound bag. It was literally an honest error in construction. And I know that doesn't make it better.
He built a house without a survey?
He had a survey, yes, sir. And they went out and flagged it. And they put the flag on the fence on the east side. So it was his understanding that that fence was on the property line because the orange flag was on the fence. So he used the fence as the marker to go east and west. And that's where the problem
He
lies.
only put one flag up? I mean, I don't understand why the flag was not in the ground with a pin.
They tied the orange ribbon on the fence.
Close to it a lot of times.
Which explains why it's perfect with this fence.
I thought you said they caught it once he got to the builder, caught it once he got the survey.
The foundation survey. By then, the houses, they don't have to have the foundation survey turned into planning until later on. They've already poured the foundation, went up with the walls, starting the roof, and the foundation survey comes back. And that's when they realize we have a problem, because we don't have to have the foundation turned in until they're ready for their next inspection. By then, it was too late.
Who is this? Is who's the owner?
Links Group, Dave Sanders.
I mean, does he build houses regularly? Is he a builder? Is he a contractor?
He's built 80 homes in the last 18 years, and it's the first time he's been before y'all. He's here tonight.
Okay, we'll get around talking to him. Anything else?
That'll do it.
Mr. Chairman, just a clarification for the record on the exception. In 5.00.03, the building setback section, the exception does provide for platted or unplatted, non-conforming, undeveloped residential lots prior to June 1975. So there's no requirement that it has to be a platted lot, just a lot of record.
So we don't
Non-conforming,
know if this
undeveloped.
qualifies or not, correct?
Well,
We do not know if this lot qualifies. Does it qualify for this?
I think it's the 10,000 square foot question rather than the platted or unplatted question.
10,043 square feet.
We're over it by 43 feet if you do field and 80 if you do deed. I believe one of them's 80, one of them's 43. I mean, we're that close.
Okay. Who's the owner? Having heard, okay, come up, please. Is that the person that built, who's the builder? I mean, is this the gentleman you said owned the lot?
Chairman, I'm David Sanders. I'm the builder. My wife is the owner.
I'm the owner.
Okay, explain to me how you interpret a ribbon on a fence being the survey marker.
That's commonly done. A lot of times you don't actually see a marker. If it's gonna be, they'll take a tree or a fence or something like that so you can denote where the marker should be. But many times you don't actually physically see the marker itself.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. And you built 80 houses this way and never had a problem?
No, he
I've
never had a problem.
sir, and this is a mistake of a lifetime for me. I mean, building career.
I just always look for a pin. I can't comprehend
Well,
that.
pins are, yes, sir, they're not always visible. Metal detector, I mean, I thought about
When you
that.
had the other survey, you saw the pin, right? Foundation
Seven and a
survey.
half feet.
I didn't physically locate the pin, no, sir. I looked at the survey.
Okay. All right. Any questions?
Disclose something. I know Dave on a personal, I need to recuse myself because, me and Dave are friends. I've known him for a long time. And, I don't think it'd be right for me to be voting on something like this.
Very good. Go ahead, Jack.
First, stay where, I've got a question for Steve.
Well, do you have anything for him?
I do,
Okay.
but
go.
I want to change the order if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Okay. Stephen, would you? Can you hear me now? Stephen, I know the county has quite a procedure for turning in surveys. I mean, there's like 3 different times that we have to turn in a survey during the process of construction.
It's my understanding, I don't review residential development, so I'm not exactly sure on that, but I understand that there are a number of surveys required in that application process, yes. Boundary and then foundation, potentially elevation certificate, which would require some additional work, I believe.
Right. So initially, you have to have a survey that shows the proposed location of the house.
Yes,
That's
sir.
turned into planning and zoning to be approved. Okay? In that survey, typically, it's going to show features like a fence that are on or adjacent to the property.
They should, certainly.
Okay? So my point is that I'm getting at, that survey should have shown that fence was sitting at askew to the property line.
Yes, sir.
Possibly.
I have the revised survey in this draft report. I don't believe I included the original. That may be the case, yes.
Okay? Then initially, after you dig a footing and pour a foundation wall or lay up a block wall, foundation wall, before you can have pretty much any other inspections, you have to have an approved survey turned in and approved by the Planning and Zoning Department before you can move on forward.
After the framing.
After the frame. But we knew in June or July.
That's when the survey was ordered.
You have to come up.
The date on the survey is
June 11th, 2021.
Okay.
That was their field day. Do you remember? You'll have to ask him when he actually got the survey in his hand. I do know it took forever because he was on the phone jumping up and down. Have you got it? No, I don't have it. And he called the surveyor. Everybody was behind, even worse than they were at the moment. That delayed. By then, he's already got the walls up and he's starting the rest of it. But we do not have to have it until we call for our next inspection. I have guys that don't call for months. And unfortunately, in this case, kind of how it was, and that's where they realized they had an issue, and by then it was too late, which has led to us being here today.
Okay, so at what point did you stop construction? Have you stopped now?
And I do want to point out, since we were here last time, just because Stephen called us and we spoke with him, they got a call that he was working after our last meeting in December. They were on site 2 hours, closing up the insulation and the ductwork. I said insulation, the ductwork, because the house is still open and we were having those hard freezes coming. So we did, when Stephen made us aware that somebody was concerned, we let him know what was going on and we let him know when they checked out. No construction continued on. That was one of the first things I pointed out to him. Hey, look, whatever you do, stop, because the board is not going to take too kind to you continuing on. So I know that part, and I know, out of respect for you guys and not to upset the masses or the neighbors, we obviously ceased construction.
So you're saying that you stopped construction when?
That's when you got the survey.
Survey was in July. We received survey in July.
So you had the property surveyed in July. When they went out, they didn't put any flags up or little stobs in the ground with flags?
There's a flag on the corner of the fence, like Stephanie said, and there's also a flag in the ground on the west end.
All right, let's move along. Have a seat. Stephen?
Yes, sir. If I could have
Hey,
these,
wait a minute.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Huggins, were you through?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. If I could have the staff report and all the electronic files for the project entered into the record, please.
Slow in.
Thank you very much. Staff has reviewed the application and has determined that unless other evidence is presented to the contrary, the requested variance does not appear to satisfy the minimum requirements of section 1.16.03. It appears that this has occurred through a construction or survey error, which is not provided in the code as a reasoning or hardship relating to variance approval.
Any questions? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else here would like to speak in regards to this? Mr. Shipman?
Gary Shipman on behalf of the next door neighbor, Neil Walters. And
One with the fence?
the one with the fence. I can pass out a few things. First, here's just a copy of the land development code, particular section we're discussing.
Thank you. You don't have a variance coming up before us later today, do you, Mr. Shipman? Okay.
And just so we're clear, the section that I'm talking about is on the second page. If the hardship is self-created, you can't establish hardship and you're not entitled to a variance. And to answer a few questions real quick, this lot was created in 1977, so all the discussion we had before, this lot isn't eligible for it. The survey that they obtained, I can pass, I don't know who's pointing. Survey was done in June, they received it in July. But frankly, I'm at a loss as to why you wouldn't have had the property line flag on the setback. But the owner, well, I guess the owner technically is the wife of the contractor, but it's the contractor who's already told you is an experienced builder. The survey they received clearly shows they've invaded the setback zone. Now, we went and had our own survey done, which actually has the encroachment of slightly more than what is shown on their survey.
Shipman, do you have, I don't know if we have that. Can you provide one of those to the Madam Secretary? And do you want to have this introduced as Public's Exhibit 1? Or you had the two others, which was one was the Land Development Code, which we can take notice of that. The other being the other survey, which I believe is in backup already. So, but you introduce whatever you want, so. Yeah.
Well, we introduced both surveys,
Okay.
theirs and ours.
All right, so we'll introduce the first survey Mr. Shipman provided to the board. I believe you have a copy in your backup, but that'll be Public's Exhibit 1. And then the larger survey you just received, we'll mark that as Public's Exhibit 2.
And then the last thing I want to give you, just because this issue came up about how they didn't have to do anything, they could have reconfigured
Mr.
this
Shipman.
house.
What about the,
The Land Development Code is already out there. You can take notice of that. I mean,
enter? Go
Yeah, I
ahead.
just gave that for your convenience. But here's a set of the house plans. Location of the house is put there because that one's postponed.
This is gonna be Exhibit 3?
So the bottom line is, you have the builder, who is the husband of the owner, who's an experienced builder. You don't have a lot that in any way, shape, or form qualified for this 5-foot setback. They know that they're going to have a setback. The actual survey that their surveyor did actually cautions them at the very top in a note. Before any construction building setback lines should be verified with all relevant agencies, concerned parties. Setbacks as determined by other organizations often apply. So the surveyor himself warned them about this. Based on what they got up here and said, they started with a flag tied on a fence, which I would think an experienced builder should know better. But in any event, the Land Development Code, and the reason it reads this way is because, in essence, if you think about it, what they're asking for is they're saying, we didn't do it right, but we want the next door neighbor to be the one that bears the penalty, not us. That's what they're asking. And I believe the Land Development Code is pretty crystal clear. If you self-create, you can't get a variance. And they clearly self-created this problem. The builder could have been out there and been on top of it. The builder could have made sure that the setback line was properly marked before they came out and did the foundation. I'm surprised the builder wasn't out there while they were pouring the foundation. Anybody building a house for me is going to be out there to verify that they're putting it in the right place. The fact that I guess their home building experience is certainly better than mine. I haven't seen a house get completely framed in a month after the foundation's poured, but they said they did. That was their choice to go that fast before getting a survey and verifying they were in the right place. This is not the next door neighbor's fault. This is theirs. And the code makes it clear they do not get to claim hardship and get a variance when they do something like that. If you have any questions of me, I'm available. Otherwise, I think I've said enough.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Shipman. Anyone else here to speak in regards to this? Anyone for it? Anyone oppose it?
Can I call Shannon up?
Sure. He might not want to talk to you. State your name for the record.
Good evening, Shannon D. Clatchy.
And it looks like on your survey that you called out that the iron rods were found
Yes.
at the corners and that the fence is clearly deviating from the property line. Regarding your boilerplate note to confirm building setback lines, that has more to do with subdivisions like Watercolor or Rosemary Beach, where these subdivisions setback requirements deviate significantly from the county's basic setback. Is that correct?
Well, on certain occasions, yes. Also, when it comes into play with the non-conforming lots, less than or greater than 10,000 square feet, is there usually an allowance on that one? We don't like to put it in there, but if we know it's over 10,000 and meets certain criteria, we'll plug in the 7.5-foot setback. If we know it's less than 10,000, meets the opposite criteria, then we'll plug in the 5 feet. But we like putting that warning or that caveat on there that there may be some other instances that might be investigated, say, at the planning level.
But the 7.5-foot setback is not in dispute. It's the fence line that caused the layout of the foundation to be in error.
That's correct. And generally, we don't flag up fences unless somebody specifically says, please flag up the fence. So we had pin flags that are set at the property corners, 18-inch or 24-inch pin flags with a little bracket on it.
When you're locating trees on a tree survey, you put a flag on there to note what the tree was. So is it possible that the flag was placed on the fence to note the fence as you were doing the survey?
Highly unlikely.
Okay.
Not out of the question, but highly unlikely.
Do you recall when the survey was delivered to the client?
Best of my recollection, July. I would assume July.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Wait.
One other question.
Go ahead.
The field date was June the 11th.
Yes, sir.
And whoever did the field survey, if they saw a potential problem, would they point that out to you at that time, or would you
Generally
wait?
speaking, yes. If something was apparent with the survey and what the deed, but if there's a fence that's offline, we would generally just show the fence and it pictorially on the drawings showing that the fence lies here and here.
I'm not talking about the fence. I'm talking about the placement of the foundation. If you noted on June the 11th that the foundation was over the 7.5-foot setback, would that have been brought to your attention? Or
Well, yeah. Well, I want to say it takes some time for it to go through our process. So, like everybody else, we're a day late, $1 short. We have many other things going on at the same time. So,
Digitizing data with the stick and the laser, right? And so if you see a fence and a house that's perfectly parallel to that fence, I don't know as a surveyor that it would be readily apparent that the foundation was askew from the lot line.
understand. What I'm trying to determine is, at what point did someone know? At what point? Obviously, it was measured on the 11th. But at what point
And I'm sure he
were
told
people
them as
made
soon as he
aware?
knew,
it was
yeah.
probably several weeks before it went through, at least through my hands, where I saw it. But if I'm not mistaken, once we noted David Sanders or David Buchanan, which I believe he was involved with this, we made a phone call to him saying, you have an encroachment over there. I think it's worthwhile to take a look at it. That date, I don't know. But when we discovered it, say when it passed my desk, I think it was sometime in July, but we made the note to somebody, and I think it was David Sanders or David Buchanan.
On your survey that's provided here, it said revision date, 8/21/2021. What does that mean? Field dates was 6/11, revision date, 8/21.
Oh, you're looking at the foundation survey?
That's what that is, foundation.
So we recertified it on 8/21. There was no pictorial changes. It was just a certification, which is shown where we certified it to.
So that shows that there's a 5.11 setback on one end and 7.54 on the other. Is that correct?
That's correct. As the recert goes, this may have gone to a title company, or it may have gone to David Buchanan or whom else. I'm not exactly sure, but it was just a recertification. There was nothing changed on the survey from the original.
The original was done, what date, in July?
6/11/21 and June 11/21.
That's field dates?
That's the
or-
field date. So it takes some time to get the field data into a pictorial or illustration survey.
I believe, if I'm correct, Mr. Huggins' question was, did you notice there was a 5.11 setback on one end and 7.54 prior to August? And if you did recognize that, when was the owners aware of it?
Well, as far as the dates go, I don't have an exact date, but I would say in the timeline of probably July, maybe as late as August, but I would say July. It doesn't take usually 2 months to get us.
Did you do the original survey?
Did.
Did you place a metal stake like surveyors do with your little cap on top of it with flags around it?
Well, we found original corners. I'm going to say most of the corners here, with the exception of on the very east side of the property and the northwest corner of the north of Joiner's property. These were original corners, probably set in 77. So they were all the iron pipes. So yes, we found the original corners and these more recently set corners and flagged up around those. We did not change them. We didn't set anything.
So all four corners had flagging around it?
That's correct, yes, sir.
That was the original, so before the foundation was poured. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And then the foundation was poured, and you was asked to go resurvey it with the foundation, correct?
Right.
And y'all flagged those red flags again on the corners, correct?
If they were still in place, we would not pull them out and replace them, but they're more than likely they were still there at the time of the foundation.
The flag.
The flag stakes, yes, sir.
Well, is their interpretation that a fence, a ribbon on the fence, I'm having trouble understanding how somebody that's supposed to be a spirits builder can say that a ribbon that's on the fence is a corner marker.
Well, I would say maybe the subcontractor got carried away. My thoughts. Subcontractor got carried away, pulled off the fence. Here we are.
But it was, I believe the testimony is that the surveyor had a flag on the fence that acknowledged that that was a corner marker. I believe that's my testimony. Is that what was said tonight?
It doesn't appear that the fence is located incorrectly on the survey. I don't see this being a surveying error, but more of a misinterpretation by the subcontractor in laying out the foundation.
I'm trying to determine how a builder can come before this board and say that a surveyor puts a pin on a fence.
Well, I think they made a mistake, but I also don't think that they gained anything.
If you're going to make a mistake, admit to a mistake and not say that the surveyor pinned the fence.
I think at this point, Shannon has demonstrated that the survey is not.
I think at this point, I have a right to ask the questions to Mr. Shannon. Thank you. I'm done. Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else here would like to have anything to say in regards to this?
Platted subdivision, this is part of Cassine. You can see that those corners that are common are in fact placed in the ground iron capped rods. You look at our survey, so there's no question where the corners were on this property. They just didn't do it. Now, if the subcontractor got carried away, it's the contractor's job to make sure that the sub is doing what they're supposed to do, not the next door neighbor. That's why the comprehensive plan reads the way it is. If you self-inflict, you're not entitled to a hardship. Shouldn't put the hardship on the next door neighbor.
Thank you, Mr. Shipman. Come up.
Yes, sir. In regards to the fence on the, or the flag on the fence.
Sir, can you get a little
Oh, yes, sir.
There you go, thank you.
In regard to the flag on the fence, it's very common, and I think Shannon would probably say it's very common to denote a marker in an area by putting a flag on a fence or a tree or a limb or something to that effect, so that you'll know the marker is supposed to be there. I've never identified a marker. I think it's possible the pole of the corner of the fence may be exactly where the pin is, and I don't know if Shannon can testify that there was a marker in that exact location or not. I never saw one. I did see an orange marker on the fence.
Okay.
A subcontractor used that and poured it. And yes, ultimately, it's my responsibility, and I missed it, and they followed the fence as it deviated. So as an experienced builder, yes, I made a mistake. I certainly did.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Anyone else has anything to add? Come back up, you have the final say.
Just want to touch back on what Dave said. It was an honest mistake. He knows he's in the wrong. I can assure you, the two that we've done since then, he's actually paid the survey to go out and pin them prior to being poured. It's unfortunate. It's not one of those things where we're asking to do more. It truly was an accident. And at this point, the hardship would be that if it's not approved, we've got to tear the building down and start over just a few feet at an angle.
How many, how much is square foot of the house is involved in this? Is that an angle?
We haven't obtained that, but I'm gonna say if it's 80 and it's what is that, roughly 40?
2,896 square feet.
I thought you meant the portion of the encroachment. Are you asking the whole square footage of the house or the encroachment?
No, just the encroachment.
Half of 80 at 2, I'd say roughly, 40 square feet at an angle? Of the house that's in the encroachment? It's showing 2 at 80. At an angle though.
Right. So it's half of 80. Well, no, 80 times 2 is 100.
It'd be 106, it'd be right up to
I'm
80
getting about
feet.
100 square feet.
Yes.
100 square feet.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Close it, public discussion.
Make a motion to close the public discussion.
Second. Motion.
Vote.
Oh, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Need a motion?
Motion to deny.
Second.
Second.
Discussion.
I think the idea of flagging the fence corner coincident with the property corner could only be mistaken or interpreted as such at the northeast corner. Doesn't apply to the northwest corner. The fence falls well short. And you have the original survey and site plan, which was approved in one configuration. It's unfortunate, but I think we have to be consistent with the way we've been ruling on this even just recently.
So the fence on the 7.3, that's where the fence is touching it, right?
It appears as though that corner of the fence is very, very close to what would be the monument, and therefore interpreting one or the other would be virtually coincident. But at the northeast corner, you don't have a fence corner there. You'd have to rely on the monument.
The northeast corner,
I'm sorry, the northwest corner. It's coincident at the northeast.
so if you shot off the fence, then you most likely would,
It's pretty clear that I think what happened was they measured off the fence to set the foundation in.
I would agree. I mean, like, I mean, I even testified that he pulled off the fence.
Yeah.
I mean, like, but when you look at the survey,
Or even look at
as it, where the fence is, it goes, I mean, like the corner where the fence exists and terminates in the corner, it's gonna be extremely close. If you just assumed that the fence was straight, which is not a good thing to do, but obviously that's, I assume what they did, then you would just, if you were to think that the fence was correct in the one corner and you were assuming it was corrected at the other corner where it doesn't actually go all the way to the corner, it just goes halfway essentially. So if you were to just continue to measure off the fence, still assuming that it was on the corner where it was actually touching the survey, then you would be wrong. And that's where their mistake came in.
I agree. Very unfortunate.
Also, judging from the photos, I have concern about what transpired from the delivery of the foundation survey to the present conditions.
yeah, why not?
There's photos within the packet. And it's actually, it appears to be, it does, I can't see if it has a roof on it or not, but it appears to be 2 stories.
Yeah.
The windows set.
The window set, I do see one photo that does have, looks like roof over the garage area. I find that hard to believe you'd accomplish that from even June to August.
Well, wouldn't you have to have a nail-off inspection on the exterior walls too?
That I don't know
Yes.
personally.
You'd have to have a nail-off inspection. Well, it's covered with tieback. You'd have to have a window inspection. All these are you're gonna have to have a survey with planning and zoning that's approved prior to them doing those inspections.
They don't require one till you get your drying inspection, which is when they come do your plumbing and electric.
How do they
When's the
verify
nail off?
the nail off on
You
the
gotta have the
sheeting?
nail off.
They do, they'll
Yeah,
come do that
but
nail
that's
off.
not for the
They'll
survey.
come do the
I'm
nail
sorry,
off.
Mr. Rushing.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you,
I'm sorry.
yes.
I'm so sorry, Hayward.
Yeah, they don't, I don't think they verify the survey.
I think Mr. Rushing can clarify the procedures that he's a builder and serves as a builder. You can,
Well, if he plans to recuse himself, then he doesn't need to participate in any of the discussion of the board.
give him the information
I mean,
about the
that-
procedure of the county.
Yeah, that portion's been closed because you've closed the evidence portion. It's just now for you
The
based on
windborne
the.
debris region, the county's supposed to verify the nail off pattern on the sheathing before you cover it up with Tyvek.
I don't think you have to have the survey for that, though.
Got it. So my concern is, I understand they wanted to have a pool, but I think it's unreasonable to state that they laid out the foundation incorrectly, risking massive financial devastation to gain 2 feet for their pool area. There's plenty of room for this pool area. And so the mistake was made, and I have a hard time saying that it was an intentional mistake. It may have been a mistake measuring off of the fence, but there's absolutely no gain that they've benefited 2 feet for this pool area, which it's a pretty big pool area, and I understand that it violates the setback, but 20 years ago, I had a house hanging 2 feet over a setback, and it wasn't my fault. It was laid out incorrectly by the surveyor, and it got a variance, and they were able to move forward. And in this case, if they were to tear the house down and correct it and then rebuild it, you'd be $300,000 upside down and another 6 to 8 months of hassle for the neighbors. I'm really not understanding how it benefits anybody to tear it down and start over a dumb layout error that doesn't have a benefit to the homeowner, considering the risk of, I mean, nobody would intentionally lay out the foundation like this, risking massive financial consequences.
If they get by with it, they will.
I mean, I don't think it's intentional though. I mean, like even if you get by with it, it would be not. He's lost all the time of coming up here, and he hasn't gained anything. I mean, like there would be no reason to do it intentionally. And I can see a hardship from the standpoint of like just pure environmental. I mean, there's a lot of factors that are going into it. I don't think that it was intentionally done, and it was for sure unfortunate. While it was somewhat self-created, the fence did skew. I mean, like it's not unreasonable to think the fence was the line. So I mean, I can kind of see that as a little bit of a hardship. You're looking at it and you're thinking, well, if we put it here, and then they did stop once they found out about it. I don't see that tearing it down is going to help significantly. It's not a good situation. I mean, there are other lots that are allowing 5 feet, so it's not like it's unheard of to have a 5-foot setback.
You're good?
Yeah.
We have a motion to deny. We have a second. All in favor of deny, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. You have a 3-3. You have a tie vote. So we need to take and,
Unless there's another motion that's made, a 3-3 vote would not allow for a variance to be granted.
we need to end on the affirmative. So we need a motion to approve. Right?
If someone wishes to make a motion to approve, and then there's a change, but as it sits now, if there is no other motion, the variance would fail.
I'll make a motion to approve with it being specifically tied to the survey. And only running with the property as long as it's continues to be built, as far as if it were ever more than 50% destroyed, that it would go away. But that they get allowed to continue in the footprint of the actual rare earth survey as it's sitting there now, just that affected area.
Have a motion, a second.
What about the dimensions of the Doug Vandenheuvel survey that appear to contradict the rare earth dimensions?
We're not gonna get into the surveys.
I would think if the footprint were tied to this survey and this survey were that, then they would be, it shouldn't move.
We have a motion and a second.
Second.
We're done discussing. All in favor, aye? Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
You gotta vote.
Aye.
We tried. Motion denied the variance. So you'll be notified and, within 30 days, you have 30 days to appeal the decision or come in compliance. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is item number 8. Welch conditional use, back to these ones.
Seven.
I'm trying to get out of here.
I'll be there.
Number 7, Haydad variance. State your name for the record.
Stephen Tatum here on behalf of the applicant, Susan Haddad.
Haddad. Haydad.
Oh, I turned it off. There we go. All right, so we're here tonight on a request for a variance from the rear setbacks from 15.5 feet to down to 5 feet so that a pool can be placed in the backyard. This is located at 55 Secret Harbor Drive, which is in the Paradise Retreat subdivision. Paradise Retreat is kind of sandwiched in Mirabella and Emerald Shores, Miramar Beach, almost all the way down to Okaloosa County. We were originally here, not we, I was not here, but Ms. Haddad represented herself back in 2017 on this same request. It was denied partially because she, at that time, was short-term renting this house. Since that time, she has ceased her short-term rentals. She did that in October of this year after she decided that she was going to move into the house full-time. She has applied for her homestead exemption. A copy of that exemption is included in your packet, or no, a copy of that application. It has not been updated on the property appraiser's website yet, just because of the way things go with the filing process. She has been diagnosed with osteoporosis, and the doctors, she has 2 different doctors who are recommending that she have a pool for water exercise. As you know, osteoporosis is basically a brittle bone type disease. And she had it in 17 when she applied. It's gotten worse since then. So she's at the point now where she needs it. So like I said, the home is located in Paradise Retreat, which is a part of the old Silver Shells PUD, which is from 2002. The house itself backs up to a common area that's owned by the HOA. There's no community swimming pool in Paradise Retreat, surprisingly. So she doesn't have that as an option for use.
Where's Mr. Hall at? Let's talk to him. Hold up.
I'll take a break.
You won't need to take a break? We're gonna take a 5-minute break.
All right, just remember what I said.
Remember where to pick up.
I'll try my best.
Well, but at the end of the day, the responsibility for building it correctly falls squarely on yourself. Discrepancies in the invoicing. But they are fixing all of the problems with the construction.
We will continue our meeting. To file an appeal with the circuit court, but I personally don't think we have the right to hear it tonight. That's my position on it. Mr. Hall, what do you think about it?
Mr. Chairman, my black letter law without a direct cite is 12 months. You're allowed to bring an item back around after a denial
Would you
without a
explain that,
substantial
would you
change.
explain that to me?
Well, I'm going to look for the words in the cite for you,
Please do.
and it'll take me just another minute if you'll
Okay.
let me do that.
And I'll point out, to the board, that's generally standard. A variance can be denied, and it's not supposed to be a situation that's forever. Circumstances change, properties are sold, obviously you can come back, new owners, even if the current owner, what Mr. Hall says is generally standard across the board, is that you do have to at least wait a year before you can reapply.
Is that in the Land Development Code, Comprehensive Plan Statute, appellate decision?
Usually it's located in your land development code.
Mr. Chairman, the first provision I've come up with is 1.11.06, and it's limit on petitions relating to the same property as previous petition for land use change or rezoning. And it says the BOCC is taking an action on a petition for comp plan amendment or planning commission. It prescribes a 12-month period, comprehensive plan amendment. In any other case, other than the one described in subpart B above, the BOCC may waive the 12-month limitation described in subpart A.
Now, what is that in?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm trying to save you me reading the thing. So that provision on 12 months only relates to the BOCC and land use changes and rezonings.
Right,
So that's the first site. Let me see if I can find another one that's
which
applicable.
would not include this board, because
That
we
provision,
operate
that
on-
provision does not.
Right.
But it would need to be codified in our land development code. So if for some reason, the land development code said 24 months, then it would be 24 months. If it said never, you get one shot and that's it, then that would apply. But what I will tell you is, if you look at land development codes, whether they be municipal or county, the general rule of thumb is you have to wait at least 12 months. I'm not saying our code is
I
different.
respectfully want to see it in writing.
No, I'm not, yeah.
Because I have a real issue with your interpretation. Because my understanding, the only one that can reverse this decision is the appellate decision in the appellate court. I thought we operated a little differently than the planning commission. And I thought once the decision was made, it was final. If one of our denials, if we take and deny, tell somebody to tear that house down, he waits 12 months and come back before us, and you saying we could take and approve it. I'm saying our decision is final. And that's what Alan Ramey used to tell me back when he was alive and serving as the attorney for this board. So I want to see the land development code or the comprehensive plan or Florida statute or appellate decision.
Mr. Chairman, the term search doesn't find any other provision that relates to a 12-month period relating to a decision of the Board of Adjustment.
But when you go to the Board of Adjustment code, where it speaks in the final order of the Board of Adjustment, where it speaks that, you're supposed to have it done in 30 days, and the appellate decision is the circuit court and the appeals court, that's pretty clear. Is that not true? You can try.
Okay. So the appeal would be from the final order that was issued. That's what you'd be appealing, that the board that made the decision, that issued the final order, did not have or competent substantial evidence to make the decision they made, or made a decision not in keeping with the competent substantial evidence that was presented. That's what your appeal would be of the 2017, had she appealed 2017. It was not an appeal of the actual decision. It was an appeal that, or it would be an appeal that you either didn't have the evidence to make the decision, or you had the evidence and you should have made a decision one way and you didn't. Because what the court would do is not say you're wrong. They would kick it back and cause you to have another hearing and consider the evidence and issue an order in light of the evidence. So what we're doing today is presenting you with changed circumstances.
You can paint it any way you want to paint it. I don't think you have the right to bring it back to this board, and until in my opinion, it's up to the board members here, but I personally, according to Alan Ramey, back when he was our attorney, bless his heart, he was a great attorney, he said once it come before this board, the decision was final. Now, and that's the way I think, until there's something in the code, then I want to see it, or appeal decision, or the appellate court, or the Florida statute. I mean, you hang your hat on it every day.
I do, and it's never come up as an issue. It's always been.
We never had
Variances
one, the
can
only
come back.
one we had to come back was D. Francesca's, and I didn't think we should have heard the same case whenever the document was the final order that we denied it. Go ahead, Jeff.
Are we supposed to ignore the 2-foot encroachments into the side setbacks?
I'll get there if I get to talk.
I don't think we have.
They're not
standing-
encroachments. It's a PUD with 5-foot setbacks.
I don't think we have standing to hear it.
I think if this board wants to take action to suggest or to make the statement that you won't rehear it because you don't believe you have the authority, you can do that. I think this board, or we can assume that based on it being on the agenda that it met the criteria to be brought before this board. However, if this board feels that it doesn't need to be heard again, it can make that motion.
I feel like the same thing happened to the franchise, that it should not be brought before this board. According to Alan Ramey, back when he was our attorney, he said you can't bring it back before us. When they tried to bring the issues back in the Sandestin era, when they was trying to do a carnival down there, I don't think we have standing to do it. If this is true, every decision this board makes can be reversed by another board if it changes in 12 months.
That's correct, and that's also true for development orders, conditional uses.
Show me in the comprehensive plan, show me a Florida statute. Read the one that applies to the zoning board of adjustment.
Well, I
Read
would
it.
if I had known that I was going to be faced with this today.
Well, I'll tell
because
you
this is
what,
a-
take your
this is a
time
new
and
one.
go read it, and
I
we'll
don't
give
even
you a
have
chance to come
internet
back
access in
tonight
this building.
before we end it. I personally call for a motion not to hear this tonight. You can either continue until we get a decision from Clayton Atkins and the county attorney if we have standing to hear it. But I don't think we have standing, and I like to have a motion to deny the hearing, because it is I cannot sit here and serve with this board when the decisions that we make, difficult decision, is not gonna be upheld after 12 months. That don't even make common sense.
But if we look at it that way, Mr. Chairman, then that means that no change in the situation at the property could ever make a difference that would require a variance later. And that's what I was going to present to you today, was actual evidence
I
of
don't
what
think
we're.
we have standing to hear it, and until somebody shows me where we do, then I'm not in favor of hearing it. Mr. Hall, your comments.
Mr. Chairman, I don't see a specific provision. I've looked at the general rules as they apply to quasi-judicial proceedings that are in the Land Development Code. Also, the ones that are specifically related to land use changes and rezonings. I don't find a specific reference in the Land Development Code that allows for that 12-month cycle that would allow a matter to come back before the board. Now, yeah, that's it.
I call for a motion to,
I'll make a motion that we don't hear it. And
I'll second.
discussion.
I think that you would, if you deny a variance for whatever reason, the person would still have the right to come back and ask for a variance. Not the same variance exactly, but if you have some sort of change, like something's changed somehow, then you should be able to reapply. If you say, can I have a variance for 5 feet to do this? And say, well, how about if I don't do that, if I redo it and I do this something differently? Would that be okay? I mean, like, if you're trying to solve a problem.
is that what we're doing? Are we doing something different?
We're asking for the exact same variance, but the circumstances are different. And you'll be presented with different evidence than what you were presented with before. The final order in 2017 was based
I have a
on
motion
it
and I have a
being
second.
27, on
We're
it being a
discussing
short-term
this
rental.
and you're not. This will be discussed between the board members. I have a motion and a second. If this board wanted to discuss it, discuss it.
I liked your suggestion of postponing it for 30 days and getting a ruling on it.
Mr. Chairman, I would, as the land use attorney for the county, I would encourage him to have a continuance on this item to present some evidence to us that we can bring
I
back to
think
the
we don't
board.
need to deny it and let him take and present us the Florida statute, the appeal decision, or the land. It's not up to us to take and provide it. It's up to him to provide it. That's my position on it.
We'd be glad to be of assistance, but we understand it's the will of the board.
You've heard the testimony. We have a motion. And we need a second. All in favor, aye? Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Opposed?
Nay.
One nay. Thank you. I just, Welch conditional use for RV. State your name for the record, sir.
Wayne Welch.
Pardon me?
Wayne Welch.
Welch, how can we help you tonight?
I'm here to apply for conditional use for an RV.
How old RV is it?
It's brand new.
Brand new.
Yes.
It don't qualify. We appreciate you coming.
Fair enough.
No, I'm messing with you. Where are you going
It's
to
all
put
right.
it?
I didn't want to stay there very long anyways.
Where are you going to put it? Where are you going to put it?
As far as placement on the lot, or are you asking where the lot is?
Oakwood Hills, right?
That's correct.
What road are you off of, Mr. Welch?
Jewel Drive.
Right.
I believe it's currently not listed as a maintained county road.
Off
but
of Coventry
it-
out there,
What's that?
off of Coventry.
That's correct. I don't believe it's listed as maintained, but it is adequate enough to utilize for bringing an RV back and forth.
You've heard the testimony here tonight that when you come before this board asking for an RV, that we're gonna put stipulations on you. Those stipulations is, number one, you gotta have a septic tank. Number two, you got to have water. And number three, you got to have utilities. Do you agree with that?
Partially. In order to get electricity, you have to have approval from this board to get,
We're gonna approve it, but you also, our approval, do we have a copy of that we could give him so he can read the conditional use on the back side of it? Now's the time to discuss it. If you have any issues with it, take it and read it for us, Mr. Welch. Just read it to yourself there.
last page.
And the point is, we want people to have a place to live, but we want them to live in an area that, doesn't degrade the neighbors, doesn't dump sewage on the ground, and has the water and don't have a generator running, and that you're gonna landscape and have it look pretty nice. Do you agree with all that?
I do agree with all that. I would ask for a waiver on the septic and well requirement, as I'm going to be building in the next 12 to 24 months. And I do maintain 2 permanent residences, one here in Florida, another in northern Minnesota. This would be used, I'm applying for this 95% for the GIS address and the temporary power permit. I'd use it maybe 1 weekend a month, once every 2 months. And 4 miles down the road is a RV dump station at the Love's Truck Stop there on I-10. They provide all the services. And as part of the condition of getting a building permit, you have to have a septic system in place.
Well, why don't you go ahead and put your septic system in place and your water now?
I'm really not ready to lay out $10,000 to $20,000 to put in a well and a septic system.
In
at this
Florida,
moment.
they don't cost that much yet in Florida. The septic
Cost
tank
10.
out there should cost you about 4, and the water tap's about 3, so you're looking about 7.
He won't have a water to be well.
There's no access to a water tap. It's a well, and there's no guarantee at what depth you'll hit water.
Well's 3,200.
If you can drill me a well for 3,200, I'll take it. I'll pay you cash
I
right now.
give you the guy's name that can drill you well for 3,200. That's what he drilled one for me with. Cuz well drilling.
You can guarantee I have groundwater at the exact
I
same
will
level.
let you talk to him, and he guarantee it for 3,200, because I'm pretty good, I'm almost certain he would do that in your area. I guarantee you can get it for 6,000, because you have a 4-inch well. I will guarantee that.
Okay, so we're
Gotta
looking at
make a little
6,000
money
for the
on it.
well,
Let's do
4,000 for the
7.
septic.
Yeah.
10.
So that's a $10,000 outlay to use it 6 times in 1 year before I get a building permit.
I think the point, though, is we're trying to discourage people from the conditional use for an RV. I mean, it's
Yeah, and I definitely
one of the
understand
things
that.
that I've noticed in the 5 years is that we used to see 1 or 2 of these every other meeting, and now we're seeing 5 and 6 of them per meeting.
And I would understand the concern if I was the everyday average meth head moving out to Doak Park Heights, or Hills, or whatever that place is called. I'm a software engineer working for the Department of Defense, living in Bushnell, Florida. I come up here every couple of months to work at our office here for a day. It'd be nice to have a place to park the RV on the way out of town, dump it at the Love's Truck Stop, and go. During the summer times, I'm not even here. I'm in northern Minnesota.
Are you gonna pull it back and forth?
Correct.
You're not gonna park it?
I would never leave something parked out there unattended. Have you been to Oakwood Hills? Yeah.
And that's
Half of the
what-
sheriffs out there know me
That's-
already because
that's
the
what
few
we-
times that I've left things out there, it's gotten stolen.
That's what we're trying to prevent. You understand what we're trying to prevent?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I've almost shot a few of them.
Mr. Hall, I have a question for you. He's not asking to live in this, he's asking to take and just come in and do the temporary deal. There's no reason if we just, how are we gonna be able to do that if it's just a temporary? What we're trying to do is set where it's not permanent. Without,
Mr. Chairman, we've been discussing this, as I've told you, with code compliance. And what we've determined under our code is there's no provision that prevents anyone from camping on their property.
But he needs power.
Well, not if he's running a generator.
The whole point of the application is to get a GIS address.
I'm trying to help you, trying to help the chairman with his question.
Fair enough.
He's either camping or he's residing on the lot. And in this case, he's kind of in the middle.
Unfortunately, you're in the middle. It's an unfortunate situation.
I've been in worse places.
But in my opinion, we need to be consistent. We need to be consistent to stop what's going on out there. And you understand. You live in it. You see it. If we take and give you a conditional use permit, it'd be tied to if you sell it, it wouldn't pass. But we're really gonna insist you put a septic tank water tap. We're gonna be consistent. Okay? Do you give him a copy of the other stuff?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think he was provided with a copy.
Okay. I'm sitting here and my memory's not good, so I appreciate it.
Late.
Have a seat up front. Anybody has any questions? We're in Bushnell, Florida. Do they have anything to do with the fence? But you said you go to Bushnell. Down there in the village? That's a mess down there now, isn't it? Stephen, go ahead.
I've got a question for the county. If they said that they're gonna let it, you said that the county's position is there's no objection to somebody camping on their property with a generator. I mean, like, that would be, in my opinion, much worse than them camping on their property without making the noise of the generator. I was thinking when they were making these provisions that we were trying to keep people from being a nuisance and not just, I mean, like if you were to be living out there with a generator, no power, no water, no anything, you're just camping, then it would have a lot more unsightly appearance than.
Can I make an observation, Charlie?
Okay.
I would like to go ahead and hear this, because I'm pretty sure we done got the guys' agreement that he's gonna put a septic tank, and he's gonna get a power pole.
Okay.
And what you're discussing would be a subject if somebody was not willing to do those things, but this gentleman said he is. So if we continue with this, we can add that to his conditional use, okay?
All right.
Stephen?
Yes, sir. If I could have the staff report entered into the record, please, as well as the electronic files for the project. Thank you, sir. According to the application, unless there is evidence that is presented to the contrary, the requested conditional use appears to satisfy the criteria for a conditional use application under section 2.02.05D of the Land Development Code. Staff would just like to add one minor concern, that based on aerial photography, I've not visited the site, the road infrastructure out there does appear that it may be insufficient for the often RV movement back and forth. I don't know. It just.
That ain't none of our business.
Well, according to the code, there is a provision in there that requires that the roadway infrastructure is sufficient for said use.
Also, according to the code, it's my understanding those lots was platted in 1972, 73, and I believe on that plat, it says those roads are to be maintained by the county. So I think if he would take and make a request by the county to open it up, they would have to open that up because it's on the plat.
I would not argue with that, sir. I don't know.
If that wasn't the case, then I think that would be a concern, but I'm almost pretty concerned if a person buys a piece of property that has a road that's platted to it, I think they have the right to use their property even if they have to take and maintain entrance to the property. But it is a county-maintained road, and the county is responsible to open them, the same as it did down in off of Chat Holly Road, the old plantation, what is that?
Town of
Santa
Santa
Rosa
Rosa.
Plantation. All of those was back in the fifties, but the counties was accepted a plat, and when they accepted, they had to maintain it. So we appreciate you pointing that out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You have anything, come back up and tell us about the road. You gonna get a helicopter and fly your things in and out?
No, I thought about backpacking it in, but no, there's a power line that goes from Coventry Road to the end of Jewel Drive.
Is it an easement? Is it on an ingress, egress easement?
It is on what is platted for the right-of-way for Jewel Drive, and they've got a fairly decent road that follows that power line all the way through.
Talking about the large power line.
Yeah.
No, this would be
That's
a small, like 600 volt for residential
But it
distribution.
taking, that follows the platted easement that follows.
That's correct.
You're shaking your head. You are aware that the county did accept that plat and they're responsible? Have you talked to the county about clearing the?
I have not talked to the county yet, but I did look on the list of county roads that are maintained currently, and Jewel Drive is not on there, even though it is a platted road in the county.
Look at your plat on that. But I know they will come out and clear it $50 an hour, so you can get the county to clear it. But it is a county platted subdivision.
At least I know that I can possibly pay them to do their jobs. That's good.
You agreed to get the road in, right? Or the road's in so you can get in. We covered that.
Yes.
Do you have any other questions or concerns?
No.
Thank you, sir.
Motion to close public discussion.
Charlie wants me to ask if anybody got anything else that we're not gonna give them very long. Anyone else has anything to say in regards to this? Close it.
Motion to close public discussion.
Second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion.
Make a motion to approve the conditional use for an RV as requested with the conditions provided by Stephen, with the exception that the approval lasts for 12 months, after which they'll have to request an extension.
Want septic, water, and power?
Septic, water, and power.
And all others that has previously been discussed, that the attorney's gonna add to the others.
The potential final order conditions of approval.
Jeff?
Yeah, there were a few more that I mentioned before that I'll put in there, and I'll bring back another list that'll be a little more comprehensive. And then, as I said, the board can look at that, modify it as need be. But we'll take both the one the county provided tonight as well as the one that was discussed last month that we incorporated into the previous conditional use orders.
The others is gonna be prepared. We have a motion and a second. Do we have a second? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? You got it. Good luck to you. I said we'd be out here by 7:30. How many more we have? Encore 331, conditional use.
Chairman, can I take 3 minutes and run to the restroom, please? 2 minutes.
We're gonna take a 5-minute break. How many? How many spaces? I don't have a clue. I didn't get it.
Which one?
I heard the guy died and he wasn't gonna put it in.
Not in the statute.
Lord have mercy. Mark Davis don't run this county no more, praise the Lord.
So
Have a
if
lawsuit, like if I see you,
people
you
that
run over
didn't
my
get their
dog.
variance
I
for
want
the
$1 million.
foundation, wait a year, they can come back.
How long can it be
They can
before I
keep
see you
coming back.
again?
Be cheaper for them to
They
wait a
can
year
build
and
a
come back.
house and just keep coming back.
Okay,
They're
You
full
can't-
of it. That's Mark Davis full.
can't bring a suit a second time.
All right, it's getting late. Charlie, your time is expired. You're getting winded.
Always
Let's
expired.
move along. What you doing here tonight?
Good evening, Robert Carroll, McNeil Carroll Engineering. I am the agent and engineer of record for a project called Encore at 331. I know your goal is 7:30, so I'm going to be really quick with our presentation. So we are proposing, we have a piece of property, it's about 22 3/4 acre. It's at Ramsey Branch Road and 331. That is zoned general commercial. We're here before you wanting to put multifamily on there without any commercial. Therefore, we have to have the conditional use request. Quickly show you where we're at. So we're on the south side of Ramsey Branch, east side of 331. It's a lighted intersection just down the street from us here. Property actually extends pretty far back. There are quite a bit of wetlands on the property. We're going to do our best to minimize the impacts. The more wetlands we impact, the less density that we get. There's actually a density reduction. So there's looking at the property zoomed in. The green is kind of the potential of the wetland impacts. Everything on the south end would remain unimpacted. We'll probably impact somewhere between 6 to 8 acres for a total density. If we get this approved, the allowable density is 17 units per acre, but we'll be more in the 11 to 12 units per acre. We don't have any desire to fully develop this whole property.
All right, hang on then.
Yes, sir.
How many units per acre can you put?
With the conditional use, you're allowed 17 per acre.
And how many you asking for?
We will only be developing between 11 to 12 units per acre.
How many acres did you say you're gonna
The
impact?
property is 22.76 acres. We've got about 15 acres of wetlands on there, and we'll impact somewhere between 6 to 8 acres of wetlands.
In other
So-
words, you're gonna fill them?
Yes, sir. So we'll have between 250 to 200, no more than 272 units. What you see here is 272, which is what we'd like to get. But based on the impact, the more wetlands you impact, the less density you get. So there's a kind of a numbers game that we have to play, and we're also dealing with water management. So our goal is to reduce this impact. That's why I said we'll be somewhere between 250 and 272 units. The total property allows 386. We don't even want to get anywhere near that. If it were high and dry, you could do 386, but since you have wetlands, and if you do wetland impacts, it reduces your density from 17 an acre
You're
to
gonna
1 to 20.
impact 6 to 8 acres of wetland.
6 to 8, yes, sir. Somewhere between 6 and 8.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. And what you see here, we're proposing, it'll be 3 to 4 story buildings. And again, we just like to have the conditional use of doing just multifamily with no commercial. We don't want any commercial. We'd rather utilize the property for residential. Again, that's basically what we're here for. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple.
How many stories is your unit?
There'll be 3 to 4 stories.
3 to 4 stories.
These two structures here are 4-story. These are 3-story. Then we have some garages placed around the perimeter. Those are only single-story. There's a maintenance building that's single-story. There's a cottage building here that's 2 stories.
You can't go no higher than 4 stories.
We can, sure. I think in North Walton, the height does get higher.
Walton, you still in South Walton.
We're north of the bridge, so.
North of the bridge.
So,
If you went higher, would you impact less wetlands?
potentially, and that's what we're trying to do now. That's why we may end up at 250, 260 units instead of the 272. 272 is the max that we're going to do based on the wetlands that we would impact. But we will be
But he
south of that
can
number.
impact wetlands without our permission. What is it that you're asking the zoning board to?
So we're asking you to give us a conditional use with no commercial. We have commercial zone property that we have to get a conditional use if we don't want to put commercial.
We don't have nothing to do with your wetland that
No, sir.
impacted
No.
You're putting
Whatsoever.
apartments on
Nothing to do with density,
commercial.
nothing. It's just, we don't want any commercial. We don't want to impact more of the property because we have to have commercial. We just want to have a residential development.
I can say something about the wetland.
Well, but that's in the commercial corridor down 331. You're gonna put apartment buildings right there?
Well, we're off of 331. We're not on 331, we're on Ramsey Branch. That accesses will be on Ramsey Branch. We're behind all that.
But it's still zoned commercial.
Yes, sir. It is zoned general commercial. Right now, there's one house sitting right in the center of that 22 3/4 acres.
Uh-huh. Is there a new warehouse office complex that's
It's back here.
back there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're all aware of the housing crunch, and everyone is in need of more housing. The developers that are proposing this, they've got a complex in Panama City Beach, and they see the need, and so they'd like to expand and provide more housing. Part of this component, we also have to have a minimum 20% of them as affordable. Everybody has a different definition of affordable, but
If the zoning board agrees to change the zoning from commercial to residential, am I missing something?
Just if I could clarify, so the general commercial zoning district allows for, by right, vertical mixture with 17 units per acre, with commercial on the ground floor. The conditional use removes the requirement for the commercial bottom floor, but it adds on the 20% affordable units.
I think that makes sense. This is a simple deal.
Yeah, he's allowed to do it. Just like the RV, we can put conditions on him, but like he's essentially allowed.
we're just trading the commercial, and in exchange, we have to make at least 20% of them affordable.
Have a seat.
Thanks, sir.
Your time expired too. You're in charge of y'all up. Go ahead, Stephen.
Thank you. If I could have the staff report and electronic files enter the record, please.
So entered,
Thank you.
provided they're correct.
Well, they're as correct as they can be.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So staff has found that the application does satisfy the minimum requirements for conditional use approval within the code under section 2.02.15. Staff did indicate in the report that there are some concerns, but the agent did touch on it, that the wetland impacts may serve to decrease the current 272 units based on that 1 to 20 reduced density for those impacted areas. It's as long as there's no issue with that 20%. I just want to make clear to the board that the 272 provides for, I think, 50, if I can find provides for 55 affordable units. That may serve to change depending on the impact. So that 55 affordable units could go down from there. I just wanted to make that clear.
What's the definition of affordable?
Okay, so that's very good. In this instance, I believe they are proposing to do the moderate income level. Right, so the moderate income level is one of those income brackets as provided in Florida statutes that ranges from extremely low income to moderate income. Our code currently uses the term affordable housing as an umbrella term that covers all of those income ranges. They have the option as the applicant to pick what range they want to use as their 20%. So that if the applicant wanted to, they could provide 20% serving extremely low income individuals. The applicant has decided to use the moderate income level, which is a range from, I believe, 80 to a max of 120% of county AMI, or adjusted median income, which I believe is around 80,000. So you're looking at an income or a rent level restricted based on 120% of that AMI, which is about 83, I think. It goes up to like 93, I guess, with the actual figures, but the state actually limits the rent levels based on this income, I think, to the income of 83,000 approximately. I hope I'm not throwing too many numbers at you. Yeah, it is. We have a high AMI. I think it's skewed by a lot of the south end, but that's where we're at. So there is a need. There's no doubt. Even in that 120%, there is a need for folks, that housing type in that income range. So.
Okay,
What would you say the rents would be then at 120% of the AMI for these
So
units?
it's made statute, the state, excuse me, every year, they define what apartments, what rents can be based on the income levels, and our code or our policy would base that on our rent levels that we would need to see on the state identified levels, so.
Mr. Chairman, we had testimony in a 3-hour hearing on a very similar project before the BOCC today that called the range between $1,500 and $1,600 per month, based on the current AMI and using the moderate income figures.
We don't think that's very affordable, but if that's what y'all want to call it, we're good with it.
We are bookended by all those state definitions
Sounds good.
that they've limited us to.
That's in Miami. Anything else?
I have nothing else if you don't have anything for me.
You're good with it?
Yes.
My big thing is wetlands. You're gonna make sure they limit the wetlands. Because I hate to see them fill in the wetlands in a few years goes around, it all falls in sinkholes, but, we need to protect the wetlands, but we don't have a say-so on that, unfortunately, so, very good, thank you.
Yes.
Anyone here that has anything to say in regards to this, any comments for or any comments against it? You have the final say.
Still under 7:30, so I'm trying to get you out of here.
Yeah, you trying to get me past the wetlands.
Thanks.
Motion to close it, public discussion.
Motion to close public discussion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
You bet. Bristol Development Multifamily Conditional Use.
Oh, this one and the last one? Okay.
Okay.
All right.
That was 10. Number 10 was continued.
Continued.
Why in the world didn't I say? How about Chandler variance? Come up.
Mr. Hendricks.
Hang on just a second. Give us a little bit. Mr. Parrish, you don't have anything before us?
Oh, I got a few things down to sell.
Okay. Are they cheap?
We got quite a bit of land to sell.
No. Good to see you, Mr. Parrish. All right. Come. He must have been the property owner. State your name for the record.
Jeff Hendricks.
What can we do for you?
We are here talking about the Chandler variance on 5199 West County Highway 38.
And you're asking, what you asking for?
We're asking for a variance for the setbacks on the east and west side.
You want a house of 3.1 feet on the western side and between 2.6 and 2.7 feet on the eastern side.
We are, and it is.
It's supposed to be a 7 foot or a 5 foot?
It is supposed to be 7.5.
7.5, is the house built?
The house has been built.
How long has it been built?
Existing since we didn't meet the 10-year whatever built in 78. We didn't meet that one, so 97. It's built in 1997.
The house was built in 1997?
Yep.
And you all of a sudden realize you got a house that is built with a variance in the setbacks, right?
Yes.
So you're, Mr. Burgess, how many feet is that? 5 feet on one side and 5.4 on the other, something like that? Or it's 4 feet on one side, 3.11, and then they need, what do they need, Mr. Burgess? What do they need?
Well,
are you planning to tear the house down and reconstruct it?
No, all we're trying to enclose the bottom is what we're trying to do. And so we want to just go straight down.
Add square footage.
To have access to the first floor to make it a livable space.
Well, we don't approve this, you gotta tear it down. So you
Well,
still want to continue with this?
we do.
Well, you want that pretty bad, don't you?
We want it pretty
Or
bad.
is what they asking for?
A variance in the setbacks from 7.
How long y'all own the house?
This is the owner.
We bought it about a year ago.
About a year ago? And nobody pointed it out that you was in the setback?
Sir, yeah, if you don't mind, we're trying to record it.
I'm John Chandler.
Thank
It's my house. And when we decided that we wanted to try to build down to, it's on pilings, and there's story 2 and 3, and we want to build down, straight down, and use the ground floor as livable space as well. And so when we inquired, we understood that that we would require a variance to be able to build and do that infill. So that's what we're here today to ask for.
Realtors just don't do their job, do they?
They're not very good. There was a couple here, they're gone now.
Mr. Burns is what they asked.
Could you enclose the ground floor while respecting the setbacks? Since
Well, it would be kind of awkward because the property is built and it's sitting there and it's, one side is 5 out and the other's 4 out. So we'd have to come inside and build within the setback, and that is an option. But then you're still gonna have pilings on the outside, so you're gonna have to turn around and wrap it with whatever code or fence that's allowed. Otherwise, you're gonna have a very awkward, unattractive structure.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the aesthetic's not gonna be any different because, unless you leave the pilings out there, which would look terrible. So, I mean, that's the rub with it.
Right.
It can be accomplished
Right,
within
and
the
structurally,
setback.
it looks like the pilings extend up to the next
Yeah,
floor, so
yeah.
the underneath would be.
Yeah, so if you come in, you've got pilings on your edges, you'd be in 4 feet or whatever with your walls. And so, it's not our number one choice.
I think we know what, Mr. Burns, did you ever figure out what they're asking?
Yes, and as the applicant stated, he's looking for a reduction of 4.4 feet on one side and 4.8 on the other, respectively. That's the reduction to word it from 7.5 to 2.6, and to 3.1 is effectively the same thing.
The side, the front and back is good, right?
Right, I also want to add on one side of that, there's 23.5 feet that nothing can ever be built on. So you have a wide, to the west, you've got a wide open area because the lot next door is converse. It goes like this. And so there's only a 10-foot throughway through there, and then you go all the way over to the next house. It's just a talking point, but aesthetically, you're not crowding anybody. We're not doing anything to expand the footprint that's already there. We just want to go straight down. We're wide open to the west. We have a neighbor to the east.
I think this is especially what we're good at, is hopefully taking care of issues like this. So I think everything is, any questions? Have a seat.
It looks like that the floor plan that you've presented is a detached rental unit. Is that correct?
No, that is not
Got a
correct.
kitchen, 2
That's set up
bedrooms, a full
for
bath.
myself, because I'm, well, I hate to say it, I'm getting a little long in the tooth, but at any rate, I want to be able to, be down there on the first floor and be self-contained, when I use the house.
But with the ability to rent
Here.
the top 2 floors
But
separately?
if we were going to rent
They're
it, we'll
ex-
rent the whole thing at once, but go ahead. You can-
They're existing. If you look at the plans, toward the front of the house, there is actually stairs that lead from the bottom up to the house, so it's not detached. It's actually an entrance to
And
the
then there's
upstairs.
stairs on the inside, too.
So you have an exterior stair,
Right.
and you put the interior stair, you could have a lockout door at the top of the stairs and rent that unit separately from the top 2 floors.
Good, but that's not our intention.
So you're gonna have 2 kitchens in one house.
Right.
Is that even allowable?
Kitchenette, smaller appliances, less space, just to be able to go with be more self-contained.
This would appear to violate the accessory dwelling unit standards.
The accessory dwelling unit, you're talking about 800 square feet?
Yeah.
Accessory dwelling unit? That would only apply if it is an accessory dwelling unit rented as a separate or detached. I was under the impression, but that is if there was no access to the second floor from there.
I mean, if you put it in the same house, it's either a duplex or you got two dwelling units in one house.
Well,
I mean, let me say this, we're doing that as a matter of convenience. If taking the kitchen appliances out meets the regulation, then we're fine with that. But it disrupts what we're trying to do.
Well, it goes back to what Mr. Shipman was saying earlier about granting the variance should not be.
I think this house was built in 1978, and the testimony that he provided that he did not build this house. The house built in 1978 before the code really was even enforced.
97.
No, but adding.
97?
No. My question is, are they entitled to the variance if it makes the house more profitable as a rental?
I don't think that considering it as a rental or non-rental, his testimony, you gotta take the testimony the gentleman has testified under oath, it's not gonna be a rental. I don't think it's the board determination to question his integrity. I can understand that if you take as we get older, one day you get that way, you're a little concerned about climbing the stairs. And he wants the convenience not having to climb the stairs. You're still just a young little thing.
I understand.
But I don't think
I
don't think in the code where it says that he's limited not to have a small kitchen downstairs. I don't, his testimony is the fact that it's not a rental.
Let me make one clarification. We will rent the house, but we are not going to rent it as separate units. And eventually, I will use it for myself only in my.
So do
That's
you
the
live
plan.
there or you don't live there? Is it a rental?
No,
or
sir, I
is it
do
a
not.
rental?
No, sir, I do not live
Oh,
there.
it is a rental.
It will be a rental, but we are not going
It
to.
is a rental.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But we're not renting it as separate
So
units.
Jeff is right. We should be concerned with that. Have a seat right there for a second.
Yes, sir.
Stephen explained, I hate to do this, but is Jeff right or not?
Well, the concern is well placed, right? I had the same concern. I reached out to them to identify if it was in fact an accessory dwelling unit. Based in conversations with staff members that review this sort of development daily, the fact that they're removing the exterior stairs and access to the upstairs portion is through the bottom, the proposed enclosed area, and it's not in some sort of multi-doored system where this would lead up and this would lead into this space. It's in the common living space. It's not creating that accessory dwelling unit.
They are removing the exterior stairs.
That's what was, yes, that's what I received, the information I received from the applicant, yes.
Can he have a rental there?
He can certainly rent the home, but he would not be able to rent the new portion, separate from the top. That would not be,
Gonna police it.
well, at this point, nobody. But the county is working on language that would address short-term rentals. I'm sure you're familiar with some of the efforts there, but currently, I don't know that there's anyone that would. There would be an inspection at the end to ensure that those exterior stairs were removed in accordance with the application.
He was right, Jeff. I apologize.
I'm speechless.
Do you have anything else to say?
Yeah, I'd go ahead and enter the staff report into the record, please, and any electronic files associated with it.
So entered.
Very good, thank you. Staff has determined, based on the application, that it is a self-created hardship. The applicant would like additional square footage and to keep the aesthetics of the structure in line with what he wishes to do so. There is not a physical hardship as it relates to the code minimum requirements for variance approval. Staff has found that it's not meeting 1.16 of the code.
But he didn't self-create it. It was, the house was built in 97. The code was in effect in 96. we didn't pay attention to the code, we didn't believe the code, and we got by with a lot of stuff, a lot of people did. You didn't have the interpretation as serious as it is today. So it's not that he created it, he purchased the house that somebody created. So will that be the same, or because it's not separate?
Mr. Chairman, if I could just provide you with the way we look at this house. This is a vested, non-conforming structure, which means it can stay the way that he's got it right now for as long as it stands until it gets blown away by a hurricane. The trigger is that he wants to make improvements to a vested, non-conforming structure. The code says if you make those improvements to a non-conforming structure, you have to bring the improvements up to code standards, the areas that are being improved. Or you take the path that they've taken, which is you get a variance rather than bringing the house up to code to make it compliant. So it's a non-conforming structure, and the reason they're here is that they want to make improvements.
Is 97 vested?
We're assuming at this point that it's a vested non-conforming structure under the code provisions. The code was adopted on that magic day in 1997.
96.
Oh, I think it was, well, November
7th, 1996.
It's getting late.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Well, this board's seen that
Well, he-
before,
he
where
didn't build the
property.
house, right?
Yeah.
And so
I
it-
mean, like, but if we did deny the variance and it was vested in 90, it was built in 97 and vested in, and it had to have been, then
But the
he would
point
have
that I'm
to
making
build,
is
tear the
that-
whole thing down.
that when I'm hired to do an addition to a non-conforming structure, all of the improvements have to conform to the new setback. So the reason I asked the question earlier was they would be able to build a ground floor improvement under the structure, bringing those walls in from the outside walls without the variance. So they could still remodel the house and add space and not need the variance. The question is, do we give them the variance so that the walls can extend down to the grade? And I'm surprised there aren't people in the audience protesting, view corridor things and whatnot, but
Why don't we take and finish discussing, get a vote, discuss it among ourselves and vote? How about that?
I have another question.
We got just a
This
second.
exceeds the coastal construction control line, and so are there not other jurisdictional issues that would affect your ability to add on?
As I know, we have to get the letter
From the county.
From the county first.
from the county to get the DEP.
Got it.
We're not real experienced with this. We waited a day for the DEP to tell us that we're experienced in the back. Here we are 5 months later. But nonetheless,
Well, now, hang on a minute. Stephen, you have anything else to add?
No, sir.
One second. What about the stuff at the back of the material, the floodplain? Is that not an issue? I see that there was a specific issue that a complete floodplain review would be required.
Yeah, so when they come in to permit the proposed improvements, whether this is approved or not, there will be a floodplain review and all the normal reviews at that time.
Have a seat.
Yes, sir.
Come back up. All right. Go ahead with your discussion, Jim.
You know what the flood zone is? Read it on the survey. It's VE 11.
E11.
And your slab underneath the house is at 17.
Yeah.
Lowest horizontal structural member will more than likely be.
We actually have to go down.
Right.
Structure.
I don't.
Yeah, we got to take out all the concrete and.
I don't anticipate the flood zone being a problem. So let's take that out of the discussion.
Why do you have to take it down?
Because of the head height. We have the room for the elevation, so we're gonna drop the floor to get the concrete that's there now. It needs to come out. I mean,
frangible anyways.
Yeah,
actually, the
exactly.
concrete is a violation
Yeah.
of the way that it's built currently, so it needs to go away.
Any other questions? Charlie, you pull off them. You have anything else?
I could keep on, but I'll just stop.
Okay. Have a seat. I don't think there's anyone here for or against, so
close?
I think we will, yes.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion,
Motion to deny.
second,
Second.
discussion.
We're gonna go back to the granting of the variance is necessary for the reasonable use of the land or building, and that the variance is good.
You better be careful hanging your hat on that. You might want one day. Matter of fact, you wanted one a couple of months ago, and all of a sudden now you didn't interpret that back then. What is that? Was that added?
I'm not saying they can't add the
was that
walls
added in-
underneath the house. They can.
Was that added December of 2021 language? I believe it was.
Well, I don't think, in case we just had before us last month, where you have a non-conforming use that's permissible, but they added on simple carport, which then we would have had to have the non-conforming use brought into the setbacks, and therefore we denied. And that's what you're asking for here.
That was, the last one was an extension out, so we were going out of it. Like, this one's already in the same setbacks, he's just enclosing the existing
I
setbacks
understand
that are
that.
there.
I understand that. I think the
So he hasn't
principle's the same.
He hasn't encroached any more than what he's already encroaching. That person was encroaching further, in my opinion. We were gonna leave that house, and it was encroaching into the actual setbacks, the actual house was too. This one, he's not encroaching any further, he's just enclosing the bottom.
The point I'm making is you're increasing the non-conformity. So you have 2 floors that are over the setback, and now you're creating on the ground floor, the 3rd floor, closing all that in and making the house a full 3-story house that's additionally impacting the setback. And
Isn't that already defined by the columns that are there?
I would think that it will be.
It's already defining.
I mean, like,
Lattice on it. I mean, the space is already defined. I mean, I see what you're saying.
I mean, it's just on the strict merits that there's a house there, there's no hardship. They're wanting to increase the area of the house to make it more valuable, and make it more profitable, to make it, it's kind of at odds with the purpose of the board. We're not here to help people add another 800 square feet to their house.
Oh, my goodness.
I don't know.
Goodness.
I can see, I don't think that it's changing the neighborhood or the aesthetics. And then I can see it being funnier looking, to be kind of stepped in.
There's a house on Bay Grove Road that was recently constructed because they're in a velocity flood zone.
Yeah.
And they have the pilings going up to support the carriage house on the 2nd floor, and the garage is set inbound of the pilings, which are exposed around the perimeter.
Yeah.
It's not
Unheard of.
terrible looking
Yeah,
structure,
I would say you could do it. I don't think that it.
I was wondering about if they
Paul,
set the walls in.
Mr. Rushing, can you pull your mic? Thank you, sir.
I was wondering if they set the walls in, could they call it a fence or whatever you call it and make the, between the poles look like an exterior wall? Yeah, just kind of close it in to kind of make it look
At that
like.
point, you should go ahead and extend the walls down, really.
Yeah. I mean, like semantics at that point. I mean,
We have a motion to deny, we have a second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
hey,
How does he vote?
I was
I
an
said
A.
nay.
Nay.
All the ayes, raise your hand. Come on, Jack, you gotta vote. You vote nay or yay?
Nay.
1, 2, 3, my golly, we denied your variance. So you have to build within the code. Okay? Appreciate your comment. Thank you. Is that the last one, or we have one more?
Yeah, there's one more.
I thought she worked for the county. You work for the county, and you come before us? Oh. Do y'all know one another? Do? Well, come on up and state your name for the record. What's your name? What do you do with the county? You the environmental planner. Environmental.
Last 2 pages. Those are hers.
State your name for the record.
Jace Finley with D.R. Horton. I'm here today to ask for a variance of 6 inches on the east side of Lot 23 in Prominence. The physical address is 140 Wharf Lane. I don't know if you guys, we sent these in, I'm not sure if they gave them to you or not.
What is your name?
Jace Finley,
And you asking for,
6 inch variance.
you think you're gonna get that?
I don't know after tonight, I'm not sure.
Hey,
It's 0 for 4, so, I mean,
0 for 4.
yeah, y'all
Yeah,
think there's
nobody's
4
got
that
one.
were no's.
Turned everybody else down.
Tough night.
All right, tell us what happened. You built a house? Y'all ready to build it?
Yes, I'll go through the timeline when I get back there.
Okay. You done it intentionally? That's the same floor plan we had before we turned down.
And we'll,
So-
we'll mark this as applicant's exhibit 1.
Applicant, so enter.
So the timeline is, we poured the house on, well, the backup, we hub and tack the house, which pins the 4 corners of the house, and it also pins our envelope furthest extremities and also pins the property. So the hub and tack pins the extremities, and then the rebar with the cap pins our property corners. With this new surveyor that we have, they pinned the garage. As you can see on here, the garage sits back a little bit, and they started pinning the extremities of the garage also with our concrete guys. As you can see, we can't blame the surveyor because everything's GPS and I can't. It's their computer. It's our word against their word. We have no clue if they pinned it wrong. What we can see is when we did build the house, it looks like the concrete guys shifted the east side of the house over. It's 0.47, which is almost 6 inches.
Is the house finished?
No, sir, we stopped construction.
When did you find out about it?
We found out, so we poured the slab on 10/11/21. We ordered our survey on 10/11 and asked for them to come out the next day, which is usually a 72-hour turnaround. They didn't get us our survey back until 11/8. We sent it into the county. The county told us on 11/10 that we were over the setbacks.
And that's when you stopped.
Yes, sir.
You had everything done that the pictures show
Yes, sir.
to that point. Yes. You asked them for 6. Are you a builder? You an owner?
I'm a builder, yes, sir. With D.R. Horton.
You who?
With D.R. Horton.
Is this a Horton house?
Yes, sir.
They don't come before us very often.
Are you the one that qualifies their
No, sir.
superintendent?
I'm the construction manager for Walton County.
Boy, you got your hands full, don't you?
Yes, sir. I do.
Y'all doing that Isles Head up there?
Yes, sir.
Got all that?
Yes, sir.
Any questions? Blake Stephen,
Do we have any pictures?
Last page.
Thank you.
last page.
No, it wasn't the last page. It was about 5
Yeah,
back.
they're kind of at the same level of completion as before. So they're using a zip system with tape, and the windows are all installed, and the house is framed up, and
Well, they get after it.
so there is a consistent gap now between people receiving
I don't have pictures.
how far they're able to get.
What do you think?
If I could have the staff report and electronic files entered in the record, please.
So enter.
Thank you very much. While this is certainly one of the smaller variances we've had tonight and in a while, it still does not meet the minimum variance requirements under the code. This was a self-created through construction and/or survey error.
I think that, unlike the ones earlier, I think they did have their pins. I think that they definitely made a honest mistake. It's not like they come before us very often. They do build a lot of houses, and we understand what the code says, and Jeff has pointed that out quite clearly, but that's what we're here for too, and they're not asking for a whole lot, so we take that in consideration. Thank you, Stephen.
I'm surprised with as many projects as they do that we don't see them here more often.
Now, they have people like this gentleman make sure that they don't mess up, and they do understand when you survey, you put your little pins down, your little flags, and you go by them. So ain't that's the way y'all talk, right?
Yes, sir. And we try not to. That's why we get a foundation survey before we start framing the house. So if we are wrong, it's only going to cost us a percentage. But after we're framing it, put a roof on it, and like I said, everyone's behind right now, which makes no excuse. Like we should have checked it. Like we should have done a better job.
I was in favor of giving the 2-foot variance on the other house, so the 6 inches is no big deal.
You've been reading that thing tonight all night long. Have a seat.
Yes, sir.
Motion to close the public discussion.
Motion to close.
Second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion.
Make a motion to approve the variance as requested.
Second.
I'd like to see it tied to the survey. Not like the whole length, but just,
Well, he said as requested, and he did say as requested, and the survey would be part of the final order. That's what I heard.
Okay,
That's what you heard, right?
sounds good to me.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Who said nay? Boy, y'all consistent. Be careful, it'll bite you.
So Mr. Henderson and Mr. Burgess.
No, Paul was.
All those, thank you.
You got your variance. We appreciate what y'all do for Walton County.
Thank you.
I don't see how y'all do it, I can tell you that. Do y'all smoke a lot of marijuana weed, medical marijuana weed?
This can all be off the record.
I said medical with a card.
Good night. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
I did tell the board that I would bring them back a new form for the variance staff report.
Sure.
We can go over it next time. I can give it to you. You could look at it. We could talk about it next time. It's
We're
up to-
reducing it to 12 months, and we're adding in some of the additional
No,
provisions.
no.
No,
This
this
is a
is-
different animal.
This is a variance staff report. We made adjustments to our other staff reports. This is just an effort to go in line with
It's
those.
not gonna lead us to do what y'all want us to do.
No, sir, no.
As long as it's not leading.
There's no leading here. I'm hoping that it provides a little bit more information up front. And if it pleases the board, staff would like to take a little bit more time in our presentation and go through each of these findings.
That's leading.
Well, it's addressing each of the findings.
Leading.
Staff doesn't think that all of the things are not met in every project. There's quite a few that satisfy the code. There's just one of those or two of those little things that aren't satisfied. So it really wouldn't be changing much. I would just be saying, it meets this one, it meets this one, it doesn't meet this one, and that's what I'm doing already, really.
Yeah, but we're gonna have to give that some thought.
That's fine,
You can leave it
absolutely.
with us and
I
we'll
encourage,
think about it.
yeah.
I don't want to be manipulated by the planning department. You gotta watch Mr. Hall. He's a new lawyer. You gotta watch him.
You're a free agent, Mr. Chairman.
But it is late. If you guys just want to take a peek and give me notes next time, I'm happy to do that.
Let's do that.
Okay, very good.
Can we take this
Get my
home?
lawyer to look over this, my private lawyer.
So these will all be digitally filled in now through the portal. They'll be able to type all this in and check all these boxes, so we don't get the handwritten stuff anymore.
So no, that is just the report portion that I provide. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's address the minutes. Thank you, Stephen.
Motion to approve
I
the
didn't
minutes.
mean to cut you off. Anything else you want to add?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Hang on a minute. Y'all take this home and read it. We're not obligated to it. If it's gonna lead them to influence our decision, we don't need to do it, right? Now, motion to accept the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
We do appreciate everybody coming. We had a good meeting. Jeff is just unpredictable. I tell you, he's just unpredictable.
Lively. Jeff was
That's
more
right.
consistent than you were.
Charlie? Keep it to yourself,
Your-
Charlie. Keep it to yourself.
Our last one was a tad hypocritical.
We had a good
Mr. Burgess
meeting.
was consistent.
Charlie, that's enough, Charlie.
All right.
Mr. Burgess is too,
Wait, you didn't vote tonight, did you?
huh?
You didn't vote on anything tonight?
I voted, yes, I voted. I voted with you and Charlie on the one that y'all voted for. They voted, not Mr. Burgess?
Yeah.
Well, sure, I'm gonna vote. We gotta vote. Jack didn't wanna vote tonight.
Oh,
He didn't wanna vote on nothing tonight.
maybe.
We gotta vote, Jack.
Take our papers home.
I appreciate, I'm gonna tell you something.
What would you want?
I know they probably gonna yell at me, but I appreciate y'all standing up what this board is supposed to do and taking a position according to the way I was taught and denying that hearing. what
Well,
we done
I'm
in
tired of the medically recommended pool variances. I mean, what is that?
That is, that is lies. Right, Mr. Hall?
I mean,
Tired of it. You're off the clock. Boy, that's a good one.
Motion we adjourn?
The medical, the reason they do the medical now is because we were requiring a hardship. So that was coming up with a hardship.
And they got 3 or 4.
I appreciate your consistency, Mr. Burgess.
Thank you.
Even though I may not vote, I do appreciate